Hey, what's up, guys? Metal571 here, and this is live Q&A number 12. Coming at you hot. No, I'm just kidding. This stream is going to be titled, Can I Wear an LCD2 Closed Back for over 2 hours without getting tired of it? So that's what this one is officially about. Let's see if we get some people asking questions, because sad face, there's not too many people who are already asking a question before it started, so I guess nobody knows that this is happening. What's going on? Why does my stream health say that it's not amazingly high? I bet YouTube is just being dumb. But yeah, if you guys have any issues with the sound quality, then let me know. That's right. We gotta have the kidney beans. There it is. Should or should you not buy the HD800? I'm only gonna answer that if that's an actual question. Is there a difference in soundstage between the DT80 and DT990? I would say yes. I mean, actually, the 880 is a semi-open, technically. But even though I would never want to listen to or own a DT990 at all because it is mega bright, it does have a larger soundstage from what I remember. K371 review Plox, that's the AKG. Somebody asked me to make sure I say the manufacturer name when mentioning headphones. Maybe I will start doing that because I think that makes more sense. Thanks. That's a pretty awesome shirt, I think, too. K371 review, yeah, I'm working on it. Just be patient. But it's gonna have to come out soon because it's all the hype right now. I do still like it, and Olive just reviewed it. In fact, he got the K361 as well, which I should be getting in about a month. We'll see what happens there. So I want to do that comparison, but I'm gonna release the 371 first, and then I'll do the 361 later. I'm gonna hold on to the 371 until I get to 361. DT770 Pro 32 ohm. I talked about all the biodynamics in a pretty old video. Really, the 32 and the 80 and 250, there's an increasing level of detail as you go up in the impedance. But for me now, they're all too bright. The sub bass is pretty fun, but not as much of a fan. LCD 24, talked about that. That's the Odyssey. Talked about that in the previous stream, and basically what happened was I put it on and I was mega disappointed. It was like, it was brighter than some of the other high-end Odysseys, but the larger problem is that the mid-treble peak on it was also quite hazy, and then kind of like the air just died off after it. It was really not a fan. I mean, if you're going to pay $3,500 and end up with that level of detail, which isn't so great compared to even the 4Z and the 4, then I'm sorry. I'm not even going to bother reviewing that thing because it's not that noteworthy, honestly. Grease, nice. Will a Mr. Speaker's Aeon Flow Open be a worthy investment investment after HD650? No, I don't think so. I mean, they actually, wait, you said open. I am quite curious about that headphone. I don't hate it as much as some of the other people who've heard it do. I think the closed back was not really that great, but the open back has some possible potential there, but I've never had it at home, so I don't really know. Not enough air in the treble. Actually, the Rode NT1 is a fairly flat microphone as far as I know, but if you want some extra air in the microphone, I was thinking about, what am I from? South Jersey now? Microphone. The RE20 by Electro Voice is a pretty nice mic. I'm thinking about it because my room's not treated, obviously, and so a close-up mic with a dynamic like the RE20 might actually be better. I don't know. It's really expensive, though. I don't know if I want to drop like $450 on a mic after I've already bought the Rode. But overall, I think this mic sounds pretty good. It's just not like the best you can buy, obviously. Yeah, I have a lot of headphones on display behind me now. It's been changed recently. Also showing off the ESP guitar or the LTD over there instead of the BC Rich like last time. Um, did I like the new Slipknot album? No, it's not the best. I mean, honestly, there was like 2 or 3 songs I liked, but they've just taken such a different direction in, in what they're doing. I think they're kind of like integrating Stone Sour into the album now. So, I mean, not that that's bad, it's just different. And I'm a total like Iowa guy and self-titled album guy, so it is what it is. Good amp for a DT990. No. I just don't like the 990, so I don't have much experience with it, because if you listen to it for more than 10 seconds, it hurts, at least for me, so I don't think I have a recommendation for amps for that thing. Unfortunately, I have not heard the AKG K361 yet. I talked with Olive, and he does seem to like the 361 better. I know, so that's why I'm getting one, to see what the hype is about there. Yes, that's an LCD4 and an LCD4Z on the top shelf back there. Neither of them belong to me, but I was just comparing them recently. Let's see. Oh, you were just watching last week's live stream. Well, now you don't need to, because you got a whole nother one to interact with. Pioneer HRM7. I have not heard that. I should get a Motorhead shirt. And I actually just bought a Linkin Park Hybrid Theory shirt very recently, so I'm happy to finally have one of those band shirts around. Whatever want to review Benchmark HPA4. I don't review DACs and amps really, because while they do change the sound, it's a kind of subtle compared to headphones, and so that's just not my thing. I think I really like the way that thing looks. If that's the one with the big LCD screen that's backlit or something, yeah, that's a really cool looking amp, but I don't know much else about it. What I choose between the Creative Arvana Lav, yes, Creative Arvana Live and the AKG K371. I'd definitely take the K371 still, though I definitely need to still do that comparison. I'm just kind of guessing that I'm going to prefer the AKG right now. I haven't listened to them back to back, but I still have a Cal in-house, so I will definitely check that out. And this guy says that he's curious about the AKG's usual 6K and 10K peaks. That is not a thing, really, at all on the K371. It's an Harman-tuned headphone. It's not bright, anything like the closebacks that AKG makes sound nothing at all like the K701 or the K712. That's really important to know. That's exactly why you can't have brand loyalty in this hobby, but that's a whole nother video in itself. Every model needs to be taken on its own. How is the Sennheiser HD599 for movies? I guess it's okay. It's got a good sound stage, but I don't think you're going to get the bass rumble if you like subwoofer sound coming from movies. Hello to you too, Antivirus UK. What do I think of the Sony MDR1A? I've only heard it really briefly. It sounded pretty V-shaped to me, but it didn't sound bad at all, honestly. But I never had it at home, so I don't actually know for sure. Did I watch the video where Olive absolutely dumpstered the X00? Yep, I did. And, there are some things he said that I can totally understand. He is a very flat FR kind of a guy. He uses the HD600, straight up, and he doesn't like any extra bass boost, I don't think. And even the slightest bit of sibilance annoys him. So I can totally see why he doesn't like the X00. Yeah, that what Slap 007 said is probably closer to what I got out of it. You can see why people like it, but he doesn't really like it. At least I hope that that's what he conveyed, because that's kind of what I got out of it. It is kind of expensive, especially overseas. And honestly, I don't think the grain level on that headphone is up to par for something that costs $500 either. But it is just so much fun to listen to that thing. That's why I like him so much. So for some people, it might be worth it. But anyway, that's what I think about that review. I've been talking to Olive quite a bit. We've actually been going back and forth on comparing impressions on things. And I recommended the K371 to him so he could take a look at it. So that was pretty interesting to see his opinion. Anyway, when am I getting the LCD i4 to review? I actually have asked Odyssey for a review unit of that. So you might see that in the future. That might be one of the first IEMs, maybe the first IEM I ever review. Because it's I believe it's using the same diaphragm from the 4, the same material, not the size of it, obviously. So that might be kind of interesting. When I review earbuds, I actually have a Uncro X6 and an RW9 sitting back there somewhere. But I don't know if I'm going to review them. We'll see. I wanted to do a shootout between the Monk Plus and the Uncros, and actually, now that I think about it, I ordered an MH755 recently as well, but that's not an earbud. Oh man, the chat is going so fast. I cannot even keep up. There's only 74 people. That's going to be a tough one. Sure, SM58 mic sounds nice. And the reason why I'm laughing is because the treble detail on a dynamic like that is just not even close to what I hear from these condensers. So while it's pretty great as a vocal mic for live use, I don't think I would ever record with it. That's just my opinion. Someone else is wondering about the LCD24. I am not a fan. Simple as that, really. It's just it doesn't keep up with the other stuff that's that expensive that they offer. Do I recommend the 599 to start the hobby? If you have that kind of budget, yes. But honestly, if you're really unsure, then I would totally recommend trying the Porta Pro and the KSC75. You might as well just order both of them. That'll kind of guide your decisions from there. Harman tuned is bright, thin, shouty mids. I don't agree with that at all. But the upper mids are a little bit aggressive on the K371 relative to the highs, but Harman is quite a warm tuning. Quite a warm tuning, so it's not supposed to be like that. Anyway, best closed headphones for 500 euros. Yeah, a lot of people want to hear about the Neumann NDH20 max settings. Who's in the chat right now is working on that. And I trust his opinion, so you should definitely check it out when he comes out with that review. Where do I mail stuff for you to try? You can email me at the About section on my YouTube channel. I have my business email in there, so that's how people contact me if you're looking to send something in. I was wondering if Wild Goose Chase was going to show up on this chat, since I was just talking to you on Twitter. Says that my Odyssey LCD2C arrive on Tuesday and I can't wait. Thanks for being a bad influence on my wallet. Yeah, you're welcome. I like the Phaser more. Actually, well, I wouldn't say quite a bit more. They're actually more similar than I thought when I compared them. I did that review already, but it's amazing how cheap you can find those LCD2 variants on the used market now. It's pretty great. When will Odyssey design a headphone with a normal frequency response? That is a very good question. Actually, the Mobius and the Sine are probably the most normal sounding Odysseys, and I've indicated that to them. So your voice is heard. The LCDs definitely don't sound normal to me at all. Their house sound has nothing to do with the LCD2, actually, in my opinion, Flux, because the Mobius with default EQ doesn't sound anything like the LCD2. So if they've EQ'd the Mobius to sound the way it does with its default EQ, I think their in-house house sound is actually a lot better than maybe some of us think. It's just that they have not applied that to their higher-end LCD line, like, ever. They have their own kind of thing, which is kind of weird, but that's what I think anyway. I should do a podcast with Olive. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to see if we can arrange that. We're in totally different time zones, so it might be a little bit difficult, but the whole point of me doing this at 3 p.m. my time is so that you guys in all kinds of other countries can join. So maybe we'll see. So top 10 things that sound better than the HD820. Like almost anything. AKG K712 Pro versus the 599. Those are so different. Like, yeah, those are pretty different. Like the 599's got really forward mids, and the 712 Pro's got this like dip and the spike at around like 2 to 4K and DF-ish highs with 6K peaks, and the 599 is just a straight up, like, it's a relatively neutral headphone. It's a little bit aggressive in the mids and the mid treble, but it's not as weird as the 712. 712's got a huge soundstage, I think, by comparison. Those are really different. What's the reigning best headphone one can get a hold of today? No novelty. I'm not sure what no novelties means. I like the LCD4 a lot, but it doesn't sound like a normal headphone at all in terms of its frequency response, so I have to EQ it. But I really like its transparency in the highs and the slam it can get with a really good amp, and the bass is ridiculous, and the soundstage is very good. So that's my favorite, obviously, but the frequency response is not really noteworthy. How much better is the best Summit-Fi DAC I've heard compared to a Focusrite? I haven't ever compared Summit-Fi DACs to anything, or even heard one really, except at a show, and I wasn't concentrating on the DAC, only the headphones. I have no idea. Does an EQ'd LCD4 sound coherent with Harman/oratory EQ, or does it... Step 1, don't use oratory EQs as a standard thing. It's best to do EQing by ear, because then you end up with what you actually want to hear out of the headphone, not someone else's idea of what you want to hear out of the headphone. I said the HD800 loses detail despite saying the opposite in the review. Honestly, I think what I tried to say in the HD800 versus 800S review was that the 800S held detail better and was not as grainy around 6K, which I'm sure a lot of people will probably disagree with. But, I mean, it's just the extreme to which I need to EQ the HD800 that I stopped using it. That's more of what I'm trying to get across there. Like, you have to EQ it so far that it almost sounds like you're bringing up any grain there is within that headphone, if that makes any sense. And thanks for the super chat there. Favorite Mariah Carey album? I really don't listen to her. Do I recommend the Focal Clear? I haven't heard it at home, so I can't be sure. The Alex was pretty decent, although for some reason the two reviews, if you go watch them back to back, are pretty different. So there has to be some kind of unit variation going on there. I have no idea what's going on with the Focals. But each time I've heard the Clear, it's been noticeably more detailed than the Alex, in my opinion anyway. You're looking into the Sign DX. Yeah, on-ear open back is just... I cannot wear the Sign, the regular Sign, the on-ear. I just can't, because it's just so uncomfortable with glasses. I imagine if you're not wearing glasses and you don't mind things resting on your ear, then it's fine. I haven't heard the open back version. That's one of the few oddities I haven't heard, actually, the Sign DX. I don't think they even bring that to shows, really. It's a weird one. Odyssey Mobius running DSP is closer to house sound, but without EQ, LCD2 is closest to their house sound. I think that Odyssey's house sound is a lot more normal than maybe we think. I think the Mobius with default EQ is actually what Odyssey thinks their house sound is, but of the LCDs, I believe they say the LCD4 is the closest also to their house sound, which doesn't make any sense because it also doesn't sound anything like a Mobius. So I don't really know what that's all about. I just remember that when Odyssey wrote about their house sound on, I think it was the LCD4 measurements article that Tile did, then they showed the curve, and it looked very much like a Harman curve. There was instead of having like a shelf, though, I think the bass just goes up smoothly a little bit toward the very, very bottom. And then the mids are just kind of like a normal Harman curve. So it's clear that they don't actually want their headphones to sound like an LCD2, I think. I mean, that sounds weird, but I think their house sound is much more normal than people think it is. They just haven't been able to tune the LCDs physically to get there. Another clue is, obviously, you've tried the Reveal EQ on the LCDs, and that changes them a little bit more toward what I like, too. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. I should probably ask them about that because... there's so much confusion there of them saying, hey, here's the LCD2, this is our sound, and then they release the Mobius. I'm like, whoa, this sounds actually like a normal sounding frequency response, so which one did you intend to make? Yeah, it's confusing. And then there's the LCD2 closeback I'm wearing, which also doesn't sound like an LCD2 at all either, which is that's a whole nother review, which I'm going to do. Anyway, have I tried a Stax Lambda normal bias from 1979? No. It's pretty interesting. I want to hear all the vintage Stax. I just never have. A lot of people are asking about the MSR 7B. It's not on my review list right now, but if there's that much interest, man, maybe someone should actually send me one of those things. There was the original, and then there was like another revision, and then there's a new one. I don't even know what it sounds like anymore, but the one I heard before, yeah, it was kind of brittle sounding. It was weird for a portable headphone. What it was marketed as for like $399 originally, it was kind of odd. But it's been years since I've heard that thing. No idea. Where does the Meze Empyrean stand relative to my reigning best headphone, the LCD4? I actually compared those directly in the Meze Empyrean review. Oh, no novelties, meaning like the Orpheus. That makes sense. Yeah, I actually have not heard the Orpheus, believe it or not, anyway, so I can't even talk about that. But yeah, the Empyrean is a solid step below the LCD4 for sure. I think what I said in the review was the Empyrean was like a $1,500 headphone sound in a $6,000 chassis. So it's kind of why it's $3K, something like that. That's kind of how I justified it. But yeah, I still definitely like the LCD4 more, with EQ, of course. Have I tried the Sundara yet? I have. It didn't sound that much better than a 4XX to me at CanJam, but I've never heard it at home yet. So it's iffy. I don't know if I would end up giving it a great review or a negative review. I have no idea. Have I heard the Focal Elysia? Yeah, it's not that bad. That's something I want to explore because there's almost nothing that I recommend between like the K553 for a closed back and the really expensive stuff above $1,000 like the Atticus. And I want to like something somewhere in there, but nothing has really stood out to me so far. So things like the NDH20 and the Elysia, the AN Flow Close is absolutely out of the running, no question about it. That is not a very good headphone for its price. So that's why I have to explore a little bit more. But I haven't heard any of those yet. If Odyssey would make something with the KPH30i Porta Pro form factor, that would be very interesting. I should suggest that to them too. Because if we had planar drivers in a Porta Pro, how cool would that be? As long as we don't have a natural FR that's like a sine that requires a massive amount of correction, I don't know. That might be a little bit annoying. Can you imagine that, a Lightning Porta Pro with built-in CSP? That's weird. And before we start putting iSign 10s on Hearts Express headbands, yeah, exactly. Sennheiser's been slacking. We've wanted an HD600 frequency response with the HD800 presentation and soundstage. The closest thing we've gotten is the Focal Alex, and I didn't like it. Yeah, I didn't like it either. Honestly, I don't see the Alex as a Super 650 or 600 at all. It's quite a bit different, like metallic timbered mid-treble. It's really not the same thing at all, and I don't know why people keep saying it's like a Super Sennheiser. It's not. It's a very good frequency response for naturally, which is really impressive, but it's really not the same at all as a Sennheiser either. What do I think about the NDH20? I've not heard that thing yet. Everyone wants to know. I don't have the Neumann. And yeah, Sennheiser lost its way. They kind of did. I mean, when they invented the HD800, everybody liked the 6X0s compared to everything they made before them. Except for maybe the 1890, I guess. And then they completely changed the sound signature when they went to the HD800, which I will always question and not understand. You're listening to this with Skullcandy Crusher Wireless. Yeah, you'll survive. You just won't get the most out of this microphone, probably. Let's see. Do I have a line where I say something is overkill? Oh, absolutely. Like, honestly, in my opinion, nothing should cost more than $2,000, and $2,000 should be like the way max, like max of everything, like Susvara, Utopia, LCD4, all that stuff should float around $2,000, because $1,000 is where things start to get really, really good, and then $2,000 is like more than enough of a jump to justify the highest end. But these companies have gotten greedy, man. So pretty much, and especially source gear, I really don't hear the difference that the amount people are paying for some of the source gear would justify at all. But then again, you know, better is better, and some people will pay anything to get that last 1% of quality. Not that DACs and amp only make 1% of a difference, but I mean compared to other DACs and amps that are much cheaper. Sennheiser's entry-level stuff is more tacky nowadays with a rubberized coating. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I got a 4.20S, which is not particularly great. Yeah, Sennheiser is like way different from like the 650, 600, 6XX, whatever. And then like pretty much everything else they make is just a lot more. It's just a lot less good. Doesn't even sound like the same brand sometimes, you know. I sent my MSR7 Audio-Technica for repair, and they basically replaced the drivers, and they were much darker sounding than before. That's crazy. I really wonder about that stuff. Like, unit variation is a weird thing, and it's just so bizarre. Oh, podcastage has arrived, of course. That was very enthusiastic. Sorry, Bandrew. What headphones do you think I should pick up for analytical listening? So, like, do you want something that's actually bright, or do you want something that's actually detailed but not necessarily bright? So that's different. Like, analytical could mean either of those, honestly. If you can find a K550 and you need a closed back, that's probably a pretty analytical sound, like, in that it's bright. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I was thinking, Flux. Like, the DT80 600 ohm is, like, comes to mind, but it's both bright and detailed, and maybe he wants detail without it being overly aggressively sibilant. So, yeah, it's an odd adjective, honestly, at least in my definition. I am definitely not the reincarnation of Bob Ross in terms of voice. It's just the microphone when I get really close. Okay, that was probably way too intimate. Sorry, guys. Even if it takes DSP correction, I'll take a planar KPH30i over a Sine or a Mobius any day. I guess you just really like that form factor, huh? Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I agree that DSP is the future. That's one of the last things that Tile mentioned before he retired, was that, you know, this is the way we're going. DSP and EQ, and I think what I said in the Odyssey Q&A was that I'd like to see per serial number EQs to you know, kind of fix up unit variation, because some of these planers really do have quite a bit of unit variation, some more than others, obviously. It'd be really crazy if they were able to measure each headphone and then EQ each headphone. It's kind of like, I mean, that's not that weird, is it? Because the Mini DSP Ears has a per serial number correction, so can't we do this with headphones too? And then you can use that as a basis, and you can adjust EQ on top of it. So that's what I think I want to see as well, to be really nitpicky. Anyway, that wasn't even the question, but LCD4 and LCD4Z, do they sound the same? Absolutely not. Interestingly, they both share the same diaphragm. The 4Z's got a different voice coil pattern, and so that makes it a lot higher efficiency. But I just compared the two, and the treble on the 4Z is just starkly different. It's not like it's bad, but the problem is the LCD4's highs genuinely sound like one of the most detailed headphones you can buy. And when you put on the 4Z after you've been used to listening to the LCD4 and saying wow approximately every 5 minutes, like I do every time I listen to the thing, because it's just ridiculous, it's just a huge downgrade. The treble, just the detail above 10K just becomes a lot worse in timbre. It just doesn't sound smooth anymore, unfortunately. The frequency response isn't that different. If you're on my Patreon, you've seen the measurements already of the 4Z and the 4. But anyway, that's the LCD4 versus 4Z. So that's why I'm probably not going to review the 4Z either, because you're spending the same amount as the 4 grand. You're not getting the LCD4 sound. You're getting a much more efficient LCD4. And to my ears, I think the LCDX might actually have better detail than the 4Z. I haven't compared the two side by side though, but that's what I'm thinking from my experience recently. Okay, what do we got here now? Is there a headphone that would give me more of what I love from the K702 in the $1,000 price range? You know, the AKGs are kind of like a baby HD800, but the mids are definitely not going to be the same on the HD800. So if you like the way the mids in particular are voiced on the AKGs, there's really nothing you're going to find that sounds quite like that. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. My thoughts on the AKG K612, have not heard that yet. Still, I think somebody was going to send me one at one point, but I just kind of fell through. Some people like the 612 more than the 701 or the 702 or any of the other ones there in that series. Yes, this is a Rode NT1. You're listening to it through a... How am I wondering what interface I'm using? That's pretty bad. Andrew's about to slap me. It's it's the Behringer UMC 404 HD. So that's what this chain is, and that's going USB directly into OBS, which is doing this stream at 160 kbps. Okay, that's plenty of information. And the only reason why I have to do 160K for the compression on the stream is because that's what YouTube supports. Otherwise, I'd go up to 320 immediately, obviously. Let's see what we got here. Best headphones for detail listening under $1,500. Most detailed headphone under $1,500. That's a good question. I'm tempted to say Focal Clear sits up there. I've never compared it directly to the HD800, but it's got to be somewhat close. That's the only one that comes to mind right now. Maybe Max Settings can think of something faster than I can because I'm old. Did I love the Resi Empyrean? I did at first. I put it on. I didn't take it off for like 2 or 3 hours because I was just really enjoying it. But then as soon as you start to compare it against things that are $3,000 and $4,000, it doesn't quite get there. That's kind of what happened with that one. Podcastage says, I'm looking for a set of headphones that are as accurate as possible in terms of frequency response. Here's the other problem. Accurate in terms of what curve. Like, it's not like speakers when it comes to headphones. I think I did a video on the Harman response about this, and diffuse field is supposed to be flat for headphones, but a lot of music doesn't sound to me like it's mixed against a diffuse field targeted headphone. So it's really just the circle of confusion all over again. So you can either look at it as get the diffuse field headphone and about 90% of your library sounds like complete garbage, or you can get something that sounds more similar to what a studio's speaker setup would sound like, which generally, as far as I know, tends to be warmer than the diffuse field response, at least to my ears. Maybe my ears are messed up, I don't know. And then you would get a Harman response, but the Harman response is not quite, I need to update that video. Harman response is not quite just warm DF. It's actually diffuse field with shelves adjusted and then averaged for people's preferences. It's kind of like working backwards from the music as opposed to starting at diffuse field and then working on the music. I know that's probably really confusing, but that's the problem with asking, what's a flat headphone? That's not a thing, really. No one has decided this is what headphone neutral is supposed to be, and everyone mixes using it. It just doesn't happen. This has been a problem since the beginning of time, though, the circle of confusion. The mixing engineer mixed it on some speakers with some response in some room, and then someone else listened to it in a totally different room with totally different speakers and a totally different response. Yeah, it's a problem. That's the problem. So I wish I could have an easy answer for that, but I don't. There's really no flat and headphones. No one can seem to agree on what that should be 100%. Okay, I missed the super chat here. Sorry about that, Soundwave. Is the 95X the best $500 open back for detail? It's pretty good, I think, for that price. It also depends on if you're talking about new or used. New, it's pretty up there. The 660S is also pretty decent, but 660S is really no better in detail than the 6XX and the 600, I don't think, either. I'm trying to think of something. Actually, the HE560 V1 is probably what Flux is going to say. I haven't heard that. I would imagine that that's probably one of the most detailed headphones in that price range. I know the HE500 sounded excellent when I had one for a long time, but I never actually reviewed it. Anyway, why is my chat? My chat is in a spot where the microphone this thing is in the way for me to read the bottom of it. So that's why I'm like tilted to the left here. Sorry. All right, let's see. Do I see Sennheiser re-releasing the 600, 650? They kind of did when they updated the chassis, but they didn't change the sound. I think they're probably too scared. I would be too if I was them to change the sound. Because it's just so it's what everybody likes, so why mess with it? So I'm not sure I would ever see them actually re-releasing it with a different sound. Been running the 650s with SonarWorks. Think the 600s are worth picking up if I already have the 650. Not really, unless you're really curious about where Sennheiser started with the sound and then moved on to the 650. I like the 650 more because the mids are not as aggressive. The mids also sound less hashy. They're a little more detailed to me. But the treble is darker and the mid-bass hump is larger, so totally depends. But I don't really like the SonarWorks EQ. The couple times I've heard it, the upper mids are just way too aggressive. They don't sound normal on electric guitars. I know you're a guitarist too, so I'm wondering what you thought about that. But to me, it just doesn't. The mids are way too much on the upper mids in particular, are way too much on the SonarWorks EQ. When I've tried it, I said that I recommend the K553 instead of the DT770. I can't stand the treble of the DT770. Yeah. That's actually exactly why. I mean, the K553 is not a warm headphone either, but it's not ridiculously annoying like the DT770 Sibilant treble is. I EQ them anyway, but the DT770 doesn't EQ very well. I've already tried that. So that's the difference there as well. My fiance's dad is obsessed with all things Italian, like Ferraris. What headphones should I buy him? I guess it depends on what the budget is, obviously. Like, as if, does he already own Ferraris? Then probably the Orpheus, but otherwise I don't know. Let's see, what do we got here? Etymotic ER4XR. Yeah, I still haven't heard the Etymotics. Those are supposed to be very, very neutral IEMs. I have no idea if that's true or not. Still have to try them myself. Have I listened to the Verite Closed? No, I want to, though. Because CMF and the dynamic stuff that they release is genuinely pretty awesome. Maybe not the best value for the money, but usually sounds pretty good. So I should be getting one of those eventually. But that's up to when Zach sends it to me, which I don't know when that's going to be yet. Is Tidal worth looking into compared to Spotify? I have not tried Tidal really, so I don't know. Actually, there are a bunch of people in here who probably have it already that can help with that one. Blah blah blah. Such thing as a straight upgrade from a 600 650. Still, the closest thing I can think of is the Focals, like the Clear and the Alex, but it's still not quite the same thing. That really doesn't exist. You have to go somewhere darker or warmer, and if you want exactly the same sound, you probably have to EQ it. So, unfortunately, I wish I could say there is a straight upgrade. I used to say LCD2 to this, but wow, that far is way different. A lot of people think... Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I think the Alis and the Auteur are actually probably some of the most direct upgrades, but they're real expensive. So, that's actually what I'm going to go with on that one. I almost forgot. There's too many headphones. I can't think of them all. I am currently wearing an Audeze LCD2 closed back, actually, believe it or not. So, I'm trying to see if I can last for the whole stream wearing these. I just weighed them. They're 635 grams, I think. So they're about the weight of an LCD3. They're pretty heavy. No. I like it. iFilm and HE560 V1 for resolution and separation. It's really great, top to bottom, great value at the current prices. Yeah, actually, isn't it like $299 new also, which makes it a crazy deal, and I don't know why I haven't reviewed that yet. And I've been told to avoid the V2 and the V3. I heard the HE560 V3. Wow, it was bad. Grainier than a 4XX. I don't know what they did with that thing, but there's no way the 560 V1 is that bad. So... I'll have to try that. Yeah, this guy says I like the Focal Clear more than the Utopia. Yeah, I've heard that many, many times. Utopia is quite an aggressive headphone the times I've heard it. It has amazing detail, but I've heard the soundstage isn't the best. I haven't had a Utopia at home yet still, unfortunately. So somebody send me a Utopia already. But not yet, because there's always a queue that you have to get into in order for me to review something. Oh man, if only this could be my job, right? Actually, I would probably burn out, honestly. Not like I haven't already. Can Electrostat take aggressive EQ? Yeah, it can, and that's kind of what I mean by what you just said there. The peak doesn't want to hold itself in place. When the peak wants to hold itself in place, that means when you try to EQ it, it doesn't really sound like you can hear that the frequency response changes, but like the detail doesn't at all. If you try to EQ a 7506, it's an exercise in total futility, because the headphone is just so grainy across the board that changing the sound and then turning it up doesn't really sound any more pleasant. So electrostats are very, very clean. Well, some of them. A bunch of the Staxes are anyway, so that's why they react to EQ really, really nicely. They do what you expect them to do when you EQ them, as opposed to just maintaining their grain. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go all the way to Chicago for ZM Fest, sorry. But I'll be in New York in February. So if you actually want to meet me, I will be there both days. That's at the Can Jam at the Marriott, Times Square. Let's see what we got here. Clear and Alexa are very close in signature. Clear is a fair bit more resolving, refined the highs. That's kind of what I thought. From my impressions, I heard the Clear once at a meet, and then the Alexa, I had 2 units I reviewed at home. Definitely seem to remember the Clear being a little bit cleaner than the Alexa, but it's also a lot more expensive, and it still has that metallic timbre that I didn't like too much with the way the highs are voiced. So, which may or may not annoy you, wholly depending on what your preferences are and what your frequency response preference is too. Let's see. Remember your 770 review said they were insanely fast. No, it's not really the case with the new. I don't know what happened to the 770 guys. Like, that review is very positive, but I made sure I amended it with a pinned comment, because I bought a DT770 80 ohm way after that review and expecting the same sound, and it wasn't even close. Like, the mids were really grainy, and the bass was actually less than the 250 ohm model that I'd owned before, and the treble was still aggressive. It wasn't reduced like the old 80 ohm. I don't know what happened. It's just, headphone is a mess now. I have no idea what that thing is supposed to sound like, because it seems like it has to have changed. The older DT770s, for some reason, are really good. Don't know why. The HyperX Orbit Planar, absolutely horrible. Wow, they must have done something really bad to the Mobius to make it sound that awful. I bet their EQ is really bassy for some reason. That's what I'm thinking they're gonna do to it, which is unfortunate. What do I think about the H10 post proper EQ? Yeah, that's kind of how I reviewed it in the past. I've talked about it many times. I have not tried it with an OTL like the bottlehead crack with a high output impedance, though. I mean, it's good. It's got a really, really good soundstage, but, like, I don't know. There's just so much EQ, and the bass on it doesn't have quite the depth and the harmonic distortion minimization that the LCD2 allows me to do. And the LCD2 needs much less EQ than it does, so that's why I kind of moved on. But it's really important because it's got such a huge soundstage, so it gives me, that soundstage anchor to compare everything else to, if that's even the right word for that. Do I play racing games and simulators? I used to. I don't really play any video games at all anymore, but I grew up playing a lot of Need for Speed, so that's, answer your question, that's most of it right there. What's your thought on Hyphem and Aria? I have not heard those at home yet still. Too polite, huh? That's really interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard them at home, but I've had some people offer me to send them, and then my queue of reviews keeps getting pushed around, so I have no idea when that's going to happen yet. But definitely would like to try an Aria. And the Ananda. The Ananda was really good at Can Jam. That one I immediately took to. But I imagine the Aria is probably more resolving and probably more capable. If I tried the iSign 10, no. The Odyssey. Unfortunately, no. I think I tried the i4 once, and that was it. And it had really good detail, but I don't know about the frequency responses. Maybe not the best. Again, as usual. How many hours on Sennheiser pads before they start to change the sound signature? So much I should change them. I can't tell you an exact number. I mean, changing them once a year, if they're a daily driver, maybe every 6 months is probably safe. The only way to really know is obviously to measure them yourself, but really the treble does start to die off, but you don't even notice it because it's so gradual. over time that it changes until you get new pads, and then you're like, whoa, I forgot that this had actual some treble. So I feel like a lot of people who beat the dead horse of Sennheiser is totally veiled have old pads on a 650, which sounds really warm. It's not really as warm as people have made it out to be, but it is obviously warmer than back when all headphones were diffuse field tuned. Anyway, that's where that whole thing comes from. Do I still think the L700 competes at the top at technicalities? I thought it was really impressive in detail. I didn't directly compare it to LCD4 or Utopia or whatever, so I don't know for sure, but it was pretty impressive. I just don't like the frequency response, and the bass is just weird and doesn't have the kind of slam that, you know, high-end planers do or biodynamics do. If I heard the ZMF Verite close, no. Yeah, that's already been asked. The Verite and Verite C I'm going to be getting at the same time when I do get them. I don't know when that is yet. These are the ZMFs. The Alexa's going for $450 now. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. But now the question is, how much does the clear go for over the Alex when it's used? Because if the clear is like 700, 800, I feel like that might be a good price above. But I don't know if it's losing half its value on the used market or not. It's 900 used. Oh, that's pushing it. Yeah, that's definitely pushing it. Maybe if it was like 700, 800 maybe. But 900 is definitely pushing the value there. That's interesting. What is my favorite headphone with no EQ? I get this one in most of the Q&As. Well, my reference is the HD 650, so that's pretty close. I actually like the mids on the 660S better than natural response of the mids on it with no EQ, but I think one of the closest headphones to my preference by far is actually the Odyssey Mobius with its default EQ DSP running on it. It's really, really close. I just put that thing on and I was like, wait, what? Is this really happening right now? Because it sounded so close to my own preference. It was actually kind of staggering. I think the mids are just a little bit off timbre on them, but other than that, like the highs and the bass is just like, this is what I would want to have for a studio monitor kind of a sound, but it doesn't exist too many places. So yeah, the Mobius is pretty impressive in frequency response, at least for me. Other than that, though, the soundstage is not that good at all. And the details, it's all right. I mean, for $400, no, not really, but the headphone does a lot of things. It's more than just its tuning, so I can see why they charge $399. And I mean, hey, it's an Odyssey for $399. It's pretty cheap for an Odyssey. Anyway, is the LCD2 phaser an efficient headphone? Actually, it kind of is. Don't remember if I've directly compared it against the 650, but it's only 70 ohms, and I think it's like, can somebody pull up the sensitivity of it? It's got to be like 98 or 100 dB per milliwatt, I think. It's really not that hard to drive, honestly. It's when you get into the LCD3 that things get a little bit more difficult. That's not to say that we're not going to get... I don't even know where I was going with that. Because I'm reading the questions and trying to answer one at the same time. 101 dB per milliwatt, thank you, yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. But it's still, I don't know if the LCD2 benefits from an amp as much as the LCD3 does, but I wouldn't be surprised. If you put the Atom behind the LCD3 and put a laptop behind the LCD2, I'm sure there would be some difference there. Obviously. Oh yeah, I forgot about that sale on the Clear. Yeah, that $1,000 for a brand new Clear seems like a crazy good deal. Headphones I'm ashamed to like. That's a good question. The Atticus is actually kind of a black sheep among people because a lot of them really like the Icon. And so they immediately shun the Atticus because it's way too dark or whatever. But the funny thing is the Atticus is not that dark. It's just the mids are recessed compared to the Icon. The treble is actually kind of forward in a very narrow 11K peak. But I'm not really ashamed to like anything. I'm at the point where I don't even care what other people think at all, which really most reviewers should be in that situation. It is what it is. I also think it's funny how some people care about how headphones look. I mean, just like when you get to a certain point in this hobby, that doesn't matter either. But I will say one of the more interesting examples is probably the B&O H6, which doesn't have a very good soundstage, doesn't have a very good frequency response, and it's kind of overpriced when it was new for like $299 or something. But I still ended up liking it. I don't know why. Actually, I do. It's because the treble was kind of really nicely detailed for what it is, even though its frequency response is like mid bass hump and then upper bass dip, and then the mids are very far back, and then low treble's dipped, and then there's a little bit of mid treble. It's weird, but I liked it. So, but that's one of those reviews where it was the opposite of what normally happens, which is, hey, this headphone's got really nice technicalities, but I wouldn't buy it. It's kind of the opposite. It's like, this headphone isn't really good, but I like it. That's a weird one. If I tried the Sundara, yeah, a lot of people are asking that. Max and I, when we both tried the Sundara at Can Jam earlier this year, I think we both came to kind of the conclusion that it just wasn't that much better than the 4XX to justify a significantly higher price. But I don't know. I haven't heard it at home yet, so I don't know for sure. That's just a meat impression. How far are we from an Odyssey Mobius 2? I have no idea, but the platform seems like it's going to be continuing for a while. Because they keep updating it, or they're supposed to be continuously updating it. I didn't like the Mobius. Why is that? Is it too warm, or did you try it without the stupid virtual surround? Because that's annoying. I always shut that off and use in stereo. The soundstage isn't very good though. It actually might still be too heavy for some people, even though it's a lot lighter than the LCDs. So I can see why people don't like it. Especially new. I mean, used for $250, I don't see why that's a bad value. But new, yeah. Yeah, pretty much the frequency response is the only thing you can fix with EQ, in contrast to clarity and soundstage. But once you start EQing something really, really far, it just starts to sound weird, in my experience. But you have to be going like beyond 5 dB. Like if something requires significantly more adjustment than 5 decibels, which is massive to me, then I started looking at something else, because that headphone probably doesn't align with your preferences closely enough. If I heard Amazon HD Music with Atmos, yeah, I heard about that, but I didn't try it yet. I actually do have a budget Dolby Atmos system, but it's nothing special for the home theater, that is. Have I tried the Odyssey LCD XC? Yes, don't buy it. It's a very simple response to that question. And if you want some proof as to why, if you Google Oratory EQ for, not Oratory EQ, it's actually just Oratory posting the Odyssey Reveal EQ that Odyssey developed for their own headphones to correct them to a similar curve, you'll see that the LCD XC preset for that EQ has like a 10 decibel cut somewhere, and it's just like, that is enough of a reason to not buy the thing, honestly. But I've also heard it, and it's just not good. Not for the price they're charging. In fact, the LCD2 closed back that I'm wearing now actually has a much better frequency response than the XC. That's kind of a preview of that. But I don't think I would buy this either, because it's really expensive for what it is. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But honestly, yeah, actually, if you want a pretty accurate headphone to what I perceive as neutral, then the Mobius with the default EQ is possible. You could try one of those if you want. Actually, didn't I recommend you try the Mobius anyway? Because you're a mic reviewer and it's got a mic and it's a headset, so that's totally a Bandrew material right there. So I would definitely grab one of those, and we'll see what you think about how that sounds. That could be pretty cool. No, this Belon, Blonde, Belon, whatever. People keep recommending me those. I have no idea. Where are those coming from? Is Zeus reviewing the Blonde stuff? Probably. Any difference between the 840 and the 940, other than the 940 sounding brighter? Actually, I think the 940 is the most detailed as well. You know, it's funny that Shure put those on my head, I think, at Can Jam as well. I don't know if that was this year, maybe it was last year. They had like a good, better, best kind of a thing, and there was like I guess there was the SRH 440 and then the 940 and the 1540. And it was funny because the 440 I had already owned, so I knew what that sounded like. It's okay for a $100 headphone. It's not amazing. And and then they're like the Cal is better, I think. And then they put the 940 on. I was like, whoa, okay, the SRH series with the X40s, 440, 840, 940, 940. It's like, wow, this can actually do some detail. And they put the 1540 on my head, and I'm like, yeah, what happened to the detail? It's gone now. So that's kind of what my experience was with the Shure. So I never tried a 940 though at home. I always wanted to, but the problem with the 940 is it cracks all the time. Apparently, it's just really unreliable. The headband can just get destroyed if you're not careful. So that's something to know. Nighthawk re-review. No. Definitely not, because I'm not going to change my opinion about that headphone at all. There's no way. It's just so wrong in frequency response. There's no way I could recommend that thing to anybody. It's not even close. This album or artist you listen to secretly. It's funny because I have like a audiophile test list, and then I have the stuff I actually listen to, and there's not that much overlap, only a little bit. It's kind of funny because I listen to a lot of stuff that I'm really familiar with that I also like, but there's also a bunch of stuff that I'm really familiar with that I don't listen to regularly. So that's kind of an interesting question. I don't know if other reviewers are like that or not. Max actually is a very hi-fi person and only listens to serious audiophile music, and my music would sound like garbage to him, so let's see. Yeah, for some reason, no matter how much I EQ the Alexa, it still has that metallic timbre to it. That is exactly what I'm talking about. That is the definition of timbre and grain right there. You can't EQ it. Probably the easiest thing the easiest way to describe it is to start playing with EQ. Actually, EQ is actually helpful in me doing the reviews because I can do peak finding by here's some Metal 571 inside look stuff here. I take a Q 3.0 filter and I just notch it by like -5. Then I go moving it around while playing music to different frequencies and try to figure out where that peak actually is as I perceive it, not as a HATS perceives it or as a Mini DSP Ears perceives it. So that's actually how I do peak finding. At least that's what I'm calling it. I don't know if anyone does that. I guess they probably do. They just don't talk about it. The review process, I would have to make a whole video on probably, but that's one of the tricks I do with EQ to help me figure out what is going on with the frequency response by ear. So what's the best Odyssey for a normie? What do you mean? Like, I guess it depends on where you're coming from still. Like, if you tell me what headphones the person is coming from, then maybe I'd be able to recommend a specific Odyssey. I mean, the LCD2 is a good representation of what the classic Odyssey sound is like. But again, I don't like that headphone without EQ anyway, so actually the Mobius would be safer as a normal sounding headphone to what an Odyssey would be like, but that doesn't sound like an LCD really, so I don't know. That's hard. Belon's making a lot of stuff. They have a Sivga rebrand. Okay, that's what's going on. All right, that makes sense. Oh yeah, the Iva clone. That's right, the Sendy Iva. Yep, LCD-X, LCD-4 for rock music. I mean, I'm going to take the LCD-4 every time because its detail retriever is unbelievable. So if you can afford it, that's worth getting. And if you can deal with the weight of the thing. Oh, yeah, there it is. Podcast says I bought this Shure SRH 940 and it cracked within a week. Yep, there you go. Exactly what I'm talking about. Oh no, it's C code in my chat. That's painful. I don't want to read that. I read that too much during the week. So you do think the SRH 940 does sound very good to mine, Kern. That's good. That's good to hear. Because I was pretty sure it had some nice detail, but the build quality was definitely would keep me from recommending it. And I probably should, and Justin here in the chat is going to attest to this, I probably should update the 4XX review to say, yeah, if you buy this, it might break in a month. Because the ear pads literally disintegrate on people who have bought that thing. Even though I thought it sounded alright for the price and not horrible because it was only like $170, but oh man, the build quality on that hi-fi, man, is just, it's so not good. So my bad. Is the LCD GX worse than the 2 and the 2C? That is something I want to answer, and I don't have one yet, so no idea. Yeah, see, he says, I got extra ear pads for the 4XX, and when I got them, they were already falling apart. That's what it's like to own a budget hi-fi man, guys. Is the build of the AKG K371 build quality, the build of the build quality... You probably were editing that. Sorry, it just came out funny. Is the build quality of the AKG K371 as good as the K550s were? I think it's pretty decent. It's actually better designed because now the ear pads are... What am I doing? I have them over here. I don't know why I'm trying to... So the ear pads are like this. They're oval shaped. So they're fit a lot better. Now the headband's pretty clampy as well, which is interesting because when I first put them on, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be too shallow. And eventually it broke in, so it's pretty good now. But yeah, they feel solid. I mean, they're kind of rubbery coated, but I think the 553s work too. I don't know. I don't have any complaints about it. The main thing that they fixed with these is the sealing problem with the K550s, where they wouldn't seal at all on some people's heads. These have plenty of clamps, so that wouldn't be really the issue anymore. Oh, what do I think of the Modi multi-bit? Honestly, when I think I talked about that in the Atticus and Icon review, and when I tried that, it's known as the MIMBY, by the way, by the community, the Modi multi-bit. When I tried it against the, what's it called? The Amethyst DAC, it was just, after a while, I was like, wait, something's wrong with the bass here. And I kept comparing with an A-B switch back and forth between the Amethyst and the Modi multi-bit, and eventually at the end I concluded that I need to get something else other than the Modi multi-bit because the bass was just sloppy. So yes, in case louder for Reddit over there, there's differences between some DACs. It's gonna become a soundbite probably in the next day. But yeah. And interestingly, those DACs were more different than I compared my Magni 3 to the tube amp I had, the Euphoria, which is really strange because I feel like I should have heard a big difference there, but I didn't. It was actually the DACs that were kind of broken by comparison. I mean, the Modi multi-bit measure is broken too, so this is not really like against ASR objectivists for me to say something like that. Anyway... But yeah, the multi-bit DACs, I don't know, it didn't sound good. Apparently the Yggdrasil does sound pretty decent for people who've actually owned it, despite measuring horribly. But yeah, the Modi multi-bit, if even I can tell that DAC sounds worse than other DACs, that's not a good sign. So yeah, I'm glad Max agrees with that. It's just not a big fan. How are these LCDs? This is the LCD2 closeback, by the way, for those who don't know already. They're better than I thought they were. They're definitely based on the LCD2 Classic. It's just really obvious listening to the driver. It's instantly familiar, but the frequency response is not the same. They've got like a dip at 400 hertz, and there's something wrong with the upper mids. I think the 2K region is a little bit recessed, so like everything is a little off. But they actually clean up all right with that, with EQ. I'm surprised actually, because again, when I went to Can Jam, I listened to these. I was like, everything is dead and sounds horrible, and this is bad. And then I got them at home, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not anywhere near as bad as an LCD XC, especially in tuning. And so, yeah. I don't like them at all, again, without EQ. I just saw that someone said they liked them without EQ. Sorry, I don't. They have to have EQ. The upper mids are just not correct. But they're a lot better than I thought they were. So maybe some of the early impressions were some people... I know some people who got the LCD2 closed back very early, some reviewers I trust, definitely had a pre-production model that was not tuned right and sounded terrible, but these actually sound okay. But I don't know if I would pay like $8.99 for them either. That's a lot. So anyway, there's your mini LCD2 closed back review. Somebody timestamped that one. Fat HE4XX for over-ear pads are still great. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you only use them a handful of times, that's probably the only reason why. Like, using them as a daily driver it's going to be a problem, probably, for most people. Is a sound card enough for 250 ohm headphones? I have used, like when I started this channel I not started the channel, but started reviewing headphones about 5 years ago. That was what I was using. I was using a sound card for a DT880 250 ohm, and it was okay. I mean, but it wasn't great. I felt like there was something aggressive sounding about the Asus Sonar DG that I didn't like in the mids, now that I think about it back in the day. But anyway, it'll work, but like, yeah, you're probably better off getting a DAC and an amp. Like, definitely. Oh, okay, I see what Wild Goose Chase said. Now I ended up with the LCD2 Classic, not the closed back. Alright, that makes sense. When they release a follow-up to the K371, they'll call it the K571. Yeah, very funny. I guess I should suggest that to Harman, clearly. Recommendations for headphones between $100 and $150. Yeah, most of the time, the 599 falls into that price category. I guess you could probably try the K612, but I haven't actually heard that myself. And then, of course, the K371. If you need a closed back, obviously. I haven't heard the K361 yet. But, however, I will say that this thing, which I am going to be sending back, if I can get the cable out of it, is not good. Somebody on Olive's comments section earlier today was like, oh, K275 clearly much better than K371. Yeah, I'm gonna show what the frequency response looks like of these soon if they can stay in my hands. But this is what the K275 looks like. This is what they decided to do with the headband. And yeah, it's a mess. It's got a lot of bass. It bleeds into the upper bass. There's an upper bass dip after that. The upper mids are a little too forward, but they're bathed in grain, and the treble's kind of dead sounding. It's just, and there's much smaller sound stage than the K371. I could go on. It's just not a good headphone. Like, it was really quite stark. Like, I put those on first, and I was like, okay, this is what I've been trying to listen to for a while, and I'm like, this is not that good. And then I put the K371s on, and I'm like, what just happened here? That's why I kind of hyped that up, because it's surprising how good the K371 is for a modern AKG product, considering what the K275 is. Anyway, back to the chat here. Best closed full size 500 to 600. There is none really. A semi-closed, you can go with the Fostex X00 Ebony, but a full closed, no. I just don't think there is one right now. But I haven't heard the NDH20. I guess you could throw the used Elysia in there. I haven't heard that at home yet either. 600 versus 650, which timbre is better? I mean, the timbre on them is very similar. I think the mids are a little bit more detailed, though, on the 650 to me, because they're not as forward. But also the treble is darker and there's more mid bass in the 650. That's pretty much the difference between them. I just had them recently, and that's what I got out of that comparison. And I already sold the 600 and the 6XX, and all I have left is the 650 and the 660S over there. It's been over an hour. Yeah, the LCD2 closed back, actually, it's not bothering me today. You know, the first day I tried this thing for an extended period, my neck actually did start annoying me. But right now, it's working, but I feel like in the next 30 minutes I'm probably going to have to switch to the 371 because I don't know if I can make it 2.5 hours wearing this thing. What's an upgrade from the SU8 DAC and 789 amp? I don't know, but Max Settings probably knows that answer. D50 sounds cold and thin. Well, I was told to upgrade to the S DAC by people who can hear DAC differences within milliseconds from the topping D50 that I used to have. Well, actually, I still do have it, but I haven't A/B'd it haven't A/B'd the two against each other yet, so I will have to try that. Always go with your ears. Objective measurements are only so useful if people aren't aware of that already. When can we expect to see your K371 review? I don't know yet. Probably next week is what I'm going to target. I'm trying to think if I have anything going on that week. I do, but yeah, we'll see. I'm going to try to get it out in the next week or two. I don't have hard deadlines. This is not a second job, unfortunately. And I don't ever want it to be. What programming language do I primarily use at work? This guy knows. It's mostly C. We write in C99 because there's a lot of C89 in the code base that annoys the crap out of me. So we're writing C99 right now on top of it, which is still old. But I also had to spin up a web GUI by myself since nobody there actually knew the web languages like I did from my last job. So I guess you could also include HTML, JavaScript, CSS, PHP. I also write scripts occasionally if I have to. Bash. The life of a programmer is basically keep up with the times and learn all the new languages, or you're way behind already. So you can't really win. I still watch programming tutorials to this day, even though I've been out of school for, 5 years now. I still watch programming tutorials. I was watching some on Go and how to use React and Angular and all these crazy frameworks. It's very important to keep up to date on everything. I guess I technically am a full stack developer now. Not a professional at all. Like CSS is still an absolute pain. I'm sure somebody knows of the GIF I'm thinking of from Family Guy with the blinds going up and down. Somebody post that if you can find it. That's definitely CSS in one GIF. It's such a pain, but getting there. Anyway, days of HD 558 and K240 Studio. Yeah, exactly. That's my old school life. And yeah, sorry that the air conditioner is on from time to time. Right now it's not on. It's just, it gets hot in here. I've got lights above me. I've got lights in front of me. I'm sitting here, so that automatically makes the room hotter. Desktop PC makes the room warmer. Yeah, so it's going to run occasionally. All right, let's see. How am I dealing with how does these LCD headphone weight? I don't know. I just wear it. It works. It works. But yeah, after an hour here, I can start to feel it a little bit in my neck, but it's not like the end of the world. The LCD2 is actually pretty light for an LCD. The LCD2C is even lighter. If I remember right, the LCD2 phaser weighs about 580 grams, something like that, 590. So it's on the lower side. I think the LCD2 Classic is 550 or something like that. I don't know. You can find those specs now finally on their site though. But these are a lot heavier. These are 630 grams. So they're like an LCD3. They're pretty heavy. Well, the LCD4 sounds ridiculous. 735 grams is just crazy heavy. So let's see what we got here. A reviewer said that the K371 doesn't sound as good as the 558. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, you're comparing closed and open backs. That's very different, honestly. Compared to other closed backs, the 371 sounds pretty good. But that's different. Is the Mobius the best closed back under $1,000? I don't know because I haven't tried the Elysia and the NDH20 yet, so I want to see what I think about those. Yeah, this is actually a good answer. $650 over the $600 for mainstream music. That's very true. But honestly, no matter what you're listening to, the 600's upper mids just don't sound as detailed to me, and they're more forward. So I am meh about that headphone in general. Yeah, exactly. Odyssey naming conventions. I thought someone said LCD2 closed back, and they meant LCD2 Classic. Oh, man, too many LCD2s. And then there's the Phaser, which is the one I own, which is right there. Hyphaman Edition S any good? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've heard one of those. 558's not made anymore. That is actually not true because it's on the Sennheiser website somehow. I think you can still buy it on Amazon as well, but correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I saw that come back. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. Also, the 579 just kind of died. Now there's just the 559 or the 599, and that's it. But I saw the 598, and I thought the 558 on the Sennheiser site just the other day. I was like, what is happening right now? I tried to figure out what was going on with them on Twitter, and they took a couple days for them to respond at all to when I asked what's going on with the 600 and the 650, because they disappeared from their site and then they came back, and now they've changed the molds, which apparently didn't change the sound. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Datsun MDR Z1R is pretty bad except for the bass. Bass is very fun, but the mids and the highs are just, nah, it's not worth it. Just like Tile said, he'd rather listen to an M50X than the MDR Z1R. That's a review where I think I probably agree, although the M50X is so bad compared to what's on the market now. 558 is still a great value for the money. I do agree with that. Don't hear much grain with them. They are definitely, yeah, that's right. Basically, the 558 is closer. I wouldn't say it's that close to a 615 signature. It's a little bit more forward in the mids and the highs, and it's less refined. Yeah, the detail's not quite on the same level. The soundstage is wider, though. That is also correct. Yep. Favorite kind of eggs. I always have them scrambled, actually, and sriracha on eggs. That's where it's at. This whole hobby is dumb, honestly. I don't disagree with that. The amount of money people are shelling out on amps and DACs for small differences compared to some headphones really blows me away. But that's the way it is. Audio has always been a crazy Wild West world, man. Like, people selling rocks that make your speakers sound better or something is just craziness, and that's all over the place. And apparently cables are have huge effects on the sound. You can't listen to something without this cable. I don't even know anymore. It's a really strange hobby, man. But then again, a lot of hobbies are like that. Everyone is just the pickiest of the pickiest people, you know? Yeah, just like what Podcaster says. Yeah, is it justified to spend $10,000 on my cables? It's gotta be. It's gotta sound better because it's more expensive, guys. What state do I live in? I am in the New Jersey. So I'm an East Coaster. So much revision for the LCD2 and all sound different. Also true. I want to review an LCD2 2.2 eventually. And then if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I gave the LCD3 a hugely negative review when I first reviewed it, because it was a pre-2016 phaser. And wow, it was like grainier than an HD 650. It was bad. And then the second one I reviewed was a 2018 LCD3, and it was so much better. I don't understand. They don't even sound like the same company anymore after that 2016 revision. It was really crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of revisions on Odysseys. That's why I always tell people, look for the new headband with the holes in it and the strap, because that means it's probably a 2018 or later model, which means it's already got the 2016 drivers. All right. Where in Jersey? I am actually in Burlington County. Oh boy, modded the Audio Phantoms. No thanks. I'm gonna review them when they're stock. Good amps under $200. JDS Adam. Are there any other amps that are good under $200? That's the one that comes to mind immediately for me, though. It measures good, measures good, it measures well, but it also sounds pretty good too, according to people who can hear amps again within milliseconds of them turning on. Yeah, that's what I'm told a lot. The Atom and the 789, even by people who don't look at measurements at all, both sound pretty good. Any other headphone reviewers I would recommend? Yes, that would be Max Settings. He was just in here, actually. I don't know if he still is. I don't hate Olive's reviews. Like, some people have been like, oh, Olive's so bad and Metal is so much better. I think he has a totally different taste than me, that's all. But he's just as analytical. So that's really, he's a pretty good channel, too. There was another question in here I wanted to answer. Where was it? No, I don't see it. Resolve is okay. A lot of people need to understand that the mini DSP ears measurements, the biggest problem I have with most other reviewers is that the mini DSP measurements are quite inaccurate at peak location, and people keep pointing at graphs. Other reviewers keep pointing at graphs and be like, there's the peak. And I'm like, no, it's not. You need to use your ears to find the peak, not the graph. And that's head and torso simulators are a lot better at doing that, but the mini DSP ears is not an accurate measurement system at all. So if you're displaying graphs, and the patrons would already know this, I always have to qualify them with, no, this peak is actually here instead of there, because it's just not that accurate. Anyway, that's one of the problems I find with other reviewers. I recommend John Darko for well-made product placements. You're killing me, man. Oh, that was a good one. I like that. This is also funny. Olive hates 99% of everything. I only hate 85% of everything. It's funny because he uses EQ also, but he's really strict. Like the smallest things are off, even with EQ, and he doesn't like them. I think that's pretty interesting. I think that's an interesting alternative perspective to me. But I tried to explain to him that the 58X was clearly worse than the 6XX, and only in detail, and the bass impact. And that's why people were all up in arms about, 58X, clearly better. It's not really that simple. So I think it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I think he's better than most channels, honestly, because most channels and most audio review sites are just positive reviews after positive reviews. I think I've been complaining about this pretty much everywhere lately, but like, can people even find me a negative review on some of these review sites? Yeah, I know. I bet the stock Phantoms are terrible, and that's exactly the kind of review it's going to get, because you have to modify a headphone to make it good. That's a big detractor for me. I'm not going to go do 5 mods to a Phantom and then review it. That's not the kind of reviewer I am. Now, that sounds hypocritical because I review T50 mods, but if you watch the ZMF Classic review, you'll see that, yeah, those are kind of falling out of favor for me as well, even modded. So, why can't they just make a headphone decent? Yeah, I would definitely review a before and after if I ever did a mod. Very important for people to know the stock version of the headphone. That's why the M1060 review got so many people up in arms, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, it's not good. It's stock, it's not good. At least to me. Yeah, Olive does place tonality over everything else, which is pretty interesting. But he does EQ though too, so I don't know if that's even true. Like if he can EQ something to make it a decent FR, but I think that he will definitely downgrade a headphone a lot for needing EQ. I don't know. I'm surprised he's not watching this, because he and I have been talking lately, just in general about reviews and stuff and impressions. Anyway, yeah, there's more to a headphone than frequency response. Generally, yeah, subjectively. And that's kind of the issue right now, because thank you for the money space robot, the most robotic space ever. Yeah, we can't measure detail. Now, I asked Odyssey about this, and they confirmed again that actually detail can be kind of inferred by diaphragm weight, and I thought that was a really interesting response. They said it's not easy to measure, I think, but you can infer it by diaphragm weight. I thought that was very, very, very different than maybe even the research shows, but I guess that's what they've found. After all, that is kind of the difference between the LCD2, the 3, and the 4 driver. As you go up, the diaphragm gets thinner, the magnets, because there are more of them, and then in the LCD4, they're the strongest magnets, and there's the most of them, which is why it weighs so much, but the diaphragm is like thinner than some electrostats, and so you can clearly hear the detail difference between those. I've kind of guessed that for a while, but they still tell me that you can't actually measure it. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see if someone invents a way to measure how detailed something is, but so far that doesn't seem to be the thing. Yeah, thinner and more fragile. I mean, that's why LCD4s were breaking all the time, and actually Odysseys in general. I almost forget because this was a while ago now. And Odysseys had a lot of issues with destruction of their drivers in short periods of time. But they seem to have they're not perfect. In fact, the LCD24 that I recently had in for review died during the demo within like hours after the guy at Bloom Audio put it on, which is just you can't even make this stuff up. So it's not gone, but yeah, that's why you have to have a warranty when you buy an Odyssey, unfortunately. Anyway. Wait, why is Max being told he's an extreme opinion? I don't know. That's weird. I don't think he's ever hated on something as much as I've ever hated on a Nighthawk. HE1 has a 1.5 nanometer diaphragm. Really? Whoa, 3 times thicker than the LCD4. Wait, how do you know what the thickness of the... Did they release the LCD4's diaphragm thickness? I don't remember. They just say that it's nanoscale. I don't know if they actually gave the spec on it. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, Odyssey, I don't think they're lying. They do say that it's thinner than some electrostat drivers, the LCD4 driver, which is pretty impressive for a planar, because they have to print the voice coil on it too. It's not just a moving electrostatic driver with no voice coil. So it's pretty interesting. Is it possible to determine the level of detail from the speed or response time? So you mean like impulse response? The problem is that impulse response, if a headphone is compliant with the minimum phase rule, then that's probably not the right way to say it, but then the impulse response is really just a representation of the frequency response. That's what minimum phase actually means, as far as I understand it. And most of the time, you can model a headphone as a minimum phase device to get really into headphone nerdness. So, no, the impulse response really doesn't actually tell you the level of detail, because it's just it's the frequency response in the time domain, actually. That's assuming that there's no severe ringing issues. Like the M1060 breaks that rule quite severely. And usually cumulative spectral decay graphs, the waterfall plots, are not really indicative of detail either. But in that case, there was something really broken about the way the M1060 driver behaved. But most headphones obey minimum phase. But yeah, you also can't infer detail from it. Anyway, that probably went over about 600 people's heads, even though 124 are watching. But that's kind of what I've heard from the people who've read all those AES papers already. So it's still just subjective, guys. Sorry. I wish that sound was just, hey, look at this graph. There's everything you need to know. It's just not. It's not. If you listen to enough headphones, it makes sense. And that's funny. The 660S still have more detail. I thought that, and I fell victim to fake detail. Because I recently compared them back and forth, the 650, the 660, and the 600. And what I found was really that the 660S have about 2 or 3 decibels more treble, actually, at around 10K. And yeah, Max Settings is not the only one with that view. I just... I did not even notice that until I played with them as much recently, and now I'm like, yeah. I think I said in my 660S review that the 660S was more detailed, and actually that may still be true than the 600, but the 650, not really. And that's because the mids on the 600 to me don't sound as detailed as the 650, and 650 and 660 are more on the same level of detail, but the 660 tuning is not the same, and so the timbre is not the same either. It's hard to explain. You really just have to have them all in one room, which not too many people do. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Podcastage. He says, I sign up for the AES, and whenever a new journal comes out, I get excited and then realize, I'm still too dumb to understand any of this. Yeah, there's just... That's why reading the papers is very difficult, because, and I went to grad school, so I know exactly what this is like, When you read a research paper, there's about 12 other papers or references, so if you haven't already read them, you don't learn anything. And so it's really a problem. You have to read all the classic AES papers first. That's what the grad school kids call it. And then you can start to read the more modern research, because it all is based on previous research that you haven't read yet. So it's just so much. That's why I just ask people who have already read the papers and are even nerdier than me what's going on there. I'd like to read the Sean Olive papers. That would be pretty interesting. There's like at least 4 or 5 of them now, I think. Those are all related to the Harman response. But anyway, thankfully I know some people who've already read those papers, and they've helped me understand what they mean. But without that, I don't know how you can, or if you're not a member of the trade kinda over there, or actively studying audio engineering, I don't know how you can understand that stuff. There's so many, and podcast that says I went to grad school as well, but for finance. Nothing that helped with what I do on YouTube. Yeah, that's a lot of the case now, is people just don't have a job that relates anything to their degree at all. That's definitely not unusual. All right, let's see. Sometimes treble is confused with detail. Yes, and like I said, I think I fell victim to that in the 660S. Yes, I do have the mini DSP ears. Somebody just asked. Hello. It actually feels really awkward. Like, this is just like, it's just the weirdest. Today on live Q&A, I fondle an ear. Anyway. That's the mini DSP ears, and that's how you measure the headphones, but not well. But you measure them with something. Let's see what we got here. Have I ever spent much head time with the ADX 5000? Oh my god. I'm not going to spend 2 hours touching the mini DSP ears. Very funny. No, my god, you do not want me to record ASMR with that thing. And the reason why is because the natural frequency response of the mini DSP ears has a huge 4.5K peak on it. And so if I actually use it as a microphone, it would just shatter everyone's eardrums. Trust me, I know, because Max Settings used it as a microphone one time, and I almost died. It was so bad. Yeah, so you don't want that, trust me. Now, what was I trying? Oh, the ADX 5000. Somebody asked me about that. Now, that thing actually sounded more detailed than almost any Audio-Technica I've heard before. I don't know how they really fit into their price range, though. But, yeah, they have a weird frequency response, as do most Audio-Technicas. Kind of bright, kind of low trebly, I think. If I remember right, maybe like 5K there's a peak. I don't know. I haven't heard them at home yet, though, so... Stream has been going for an hour and a half. I can't believe it. The streams always go by so fast because you guys keep me entertained. Or I keep myself entertained. I'm not sure which one. Please review the earphone. Oh, are those the tuned by Olive stuff? Eventually. There's so many things I have to get to, and it's difficult to keep up because this is not my job. This is just a hobby. Sorry to disappoint you guys. Got some very old headphones that are still good today for a very good price. That would be the HD 580. That's probably the most clear option for someone who wants a technically vintage headphone that's priced well. Unless it's a 580 Jubilee, not the 58X Jubilee, the 580 Jubilee, the real one. That one's really expensive. I think the DT880, yeah, the DT880 has been around for a long time too, but... the latest revision of it was in the early 2000s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if the old one from the 80s sounds anything like the new one, because I haven't heard one of those. People are asking how much the mini DSP ears costs. Yeah, it's $200. At least I think. Unless they change the price. Audio-Technica house sound. Yeah, the ADX 5000. I don't know if that really has the house sound. When I think of the Audio-Technica house sound, I think of like the AD 2000X's sound, which is really bizarre. 580 is not impossible to find, but it's rarer, I think, than it used to be a couple of years ago. But it's out there. Do I believe burn-in affects sound at all? Generally, no. Although with some drivers, it's more likely to happen than others. Like anything that's using a rubber surround, more physically is likely to change over time with burn-in, but the vast majority of cases, burn-in really has nothing to do with my reviews at all, because when you A/B between two headphones, that's how you beat brain burn-in, which is the real problem behind most audio reviews. People get used to a headphone and then they review it positively, and they don't go back to something else and we compare it, and that's the problem. You have to have a baseline for everything, or else it's just biased by your own brain. HE560 is not an entry-level planar in terms of performance, only in terms of price. I thought, for wasn't it like $299 now? It's apparently really good for that price. I haven't tried it yet though. Still, Ether 2 is bad. I heard the Ether 2 at Can Jam, and the only thing I really got out of it was, hey, it's got bass and it can slam, maybe, kind of unlike other Mr. Speakers, but I don't know much else about it. I would trust Flux because he actually has one. I don't. Do I like the ADX 5000? No, personally, it's not my kind of sound. Audio-Technica open backs are kind of aggressive in the mids and the highs for me. Will I ever review DAPs? Probably not, unless I got into IEMs more. Not likely. I mean, I have an ES100 that doesn't really count as a DAP. That's just a Bluetooth adapter, but it's just got a convenience. It's nice to have. Yeah, biocellulose ZMF, that's kind of what I was getting at with the rubber surround. Those drivers may be affected by burn-in, although I haven't actually measured it or personally confirmed that it exists. But Zach always tells me to burn in anything that's got a rubber surround that he produces, so that's a thing. Yeah, I think what I heard was the HE560 V3 is B-stock drivers, or that's the rumor anyway. So maybe that's why there's a huge amount of unit variation, whereas the A560 V1 is seemingly good across the board. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not. My brain is burnt. That's funny. One day we'll have a biocellulose planar magnetic phaser array and 16BA headphone. Oh God, no. I'm waiting for a ground-up ZMF planar. Yeah, I would like to see that. I don't know if that's really something that he's planning on doing, but his own planar would be really, really interesting as well, as long as it doesn't sound like a Mr. Speakers at all. Different sound signatures in LCD doing HE560. Yeah, that's what I imagined. But Flux is the one who's compared them, not me. I'm reading the chat right now, by the way, if you're watching after the case, in case you're confused as to what's going on. Are the K371s as well built as the M40, as well built as? Yeah, I don't know if the M40X is that well built. I'd say they're pretty decent. I mean, I don't have any complaints. They don't really, let's see, do they creak? Nope, they just click. Oh yeah, one thing that's weird about them is that the way they fold, actually I'm not sure how far I should adjust this before I fold. They fold up like that. Like, it's really strange. Apparently Mr. Softy is coming by, guys. If you heard that. Live stream life. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have any issues with the way the 371 feels. I think there's metal in this headband somewhere, or at least it's such hard plastics that I'm not really convinced this is going to break easily. It feels fine to me. It does look a little bit cheap, but in the hand it feels well built. Blah 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 blah. Have you tried Aeon Flow closed? Yes. I do not like that headphone. Mainly its grain and its extreme compression in the bass is pretty strange. That's one of those headphones that measures pretty well, but yeah, I'm not a fan because of everything beyond the frequency response. Sundara measures worse than the 560. Who cares? It matters what it sounds like in the end. Thinking to review the Neumann NDH20. Yeah, people have been talking about that a lot at the beginning of the stream. I want to do that. Someone will have to send that to me maybe. See what happens with that. But I do want to do it. DT880 Pro or 990 Pro. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm not a fan of either of those headphones, but if I had to choose one, the 880 would definitely be it. Because the 990 is just so bright. And the DT880's bass is not hyped up in the mid bass weirdly, although it does still roll off like most mid-fi dynamic open backs. But yeah, it's just sibilant to me. Do I believe in or strive for endgame? That's a great question. You know, it's interesting. As a reviewer, I get to hear a lot of different things, and so you can genuinely sum up my ownership as, hey, I find a thing that I like along the way when I'm reviewing stuff, and that's what I actually end up buying. But there's a bunch of other stuff. Though that I go through, and I already lost my train of thought because I was reading the chat. Oh yeah, endgame. Yeah. No, I don't strive for endgame. So what I need stuff that I actually use for enjoyment, and then there's stuff that I need for reference. So the 650 and the 660S, that's what I was going to say, are for reference. Like, they have a frequency response that can reset my ears to kind of like what should be normal. But the stuff that I actually use for enjoyment is like the LCD2, which kind of also doubles as a reference, because for $1,000, I think I expect that kind of quality with EQ anyway. And then the HD800's a reference only for soundstage, really. I don't really use it for anything else anymore. And then I keep around the Creative Arvana Live for under $100 closeback. I just like the Porta Pro, so I keep that around for like $50 something. KSC75 is like $15. I keep that around. Kind of a no-brainer. And then I need the low mid-range closebacks, and that's actually a K553 is going to replace. I'm sorry, the K71 is going to replace the K553, I think, for that spot. So that's kind of my approach to this hobby. I'm not striving for buying all the $4,000 to $6,000 headphones and saying, hey, I'm done. Not really what I do. I try to keep the price somewhat reasonable and buy things used and that kind of thing. So that's how I handle endgame. Long answer. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know. I used the Mesoempyrean backwards on Twitter. You can all go laugh at that one now. He just so happened to take a picture when I was wearing it backwards. That's pretty funny. I used to review gaming mice. Someone asked if I had a gaming mouse. But because of my wrist problems, I don't really play games anymore, because that's what brought on the problems to begin with. This came up last time. Maybe eventually I'll buy a console. I don't know. But this was the mouse I was using before I quit, which is the Logitech G Pro. It's not the newest one. I don't even know which sensor this one is using. Probably not the latest. I don't have the wireless one. The wireless one is supposed to be pretty good too. Since I'm wearing LCD2 close, do I recommend a closeback that responds as well to EQ as the LCD2 Classic? I mean, the LCD2 Classic responds okay to EQ. The LCD2 Phaser is a little bit better at that. I don't know if there are any real closed backs that respond to EQ as well as open backs, to be honest, but I think one of the ones would be the K550. That's why I used it for so long. It's a little bit bright and a little bit forward in the mids, but the treble responds really, really well to EQ. Or you could just buy an X00 and just have a blast. It's not really a closed back though. It's mostly closed back. Slight amount of venting there. It's the nicest looking headphone in my opinion. This might surprise some people, but I really like the way the AKG K701 looks for some reason. Even though it's built with a lot of plastic, it just looks so futuristic, and that's kind of also why, if you haven't noticed yet, that's my cartoon profile picture is based on that. That's one of my favorites, but really the Empyrean is breathtakingly well made. It's probably the best built headphone I've ever had come through for review. Really impressive, amazing build quality, and looks really awesome. I really knocked it out of the park in terms of that. How do you tell your date you like audio this much? I'm sorry, I don't know if I can help with that one. Well, actually, instead of doing that, why don't you just ask them if they want to try your headphones? And for some people, it either clicks immediately or they just don't care. So that's kind of been my experience. I've had plenty of people try my stuff, and some of them are just like, sounds like music. And the other ones are like, whoa, this changed my world. And I'm like, sorry. So thank you for the super chat. What in the world is an Allo Audio S4 and S4R? I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer. But since you just super chat, I guess I will look it up. Allo Audio S4. This looks like it's based on something else, but I don't know what. Well, if somebody confirms what it is, then maybe I'll be able to help answer that. Alright, I have a G Pro, but for work. Yeah, actually what I'm using right now is this. Believe it or not, this is a Logitech MX Vertical. And I was using it at work, but I am... Oh, look, an infrared sensor. Comes up on the camera, but not in real life. MX Vertical, I use this at work. I also just bought an Evoluent. If you've heard of those other vertical mice, that's probably the most popular one, the Evoluent VM4R, I think it's called. One of my coworkers had one, and he had some wrist and arm issues. He bought that, completely went away, gone. Mice are incredibly non-ergonomic, and when your wrist is as weak as mine is after having surgery and still recovering, then you tend to want to be careful with it. So yes, this is actually a pretty decent mouse. The Evoluent is kind of dated, but the MX Vertical is real nice, and it feels great to me. So if you've ever had any issues with your wrist, this is, oh, by the way, this is not a gaming mouse at all, by the way, so don't try to use it for that. But I find it's great for work. I just wish they put the infinite scroll wheel on it, because I was using the MX Master and Master 2S before I got this, and I missed that. Blah, blah, blah. Are we still having this argument in the chat where people think frequency response is everything? Because I thought I just said earlier that judging a headphone purely based on the measurements is just wrong, because it is. But anyway, someone says they can feel my neck hurting. Take this thing off. I don't know, it's not really bothering me that much, surprisingly. Fondle the DSP ears again. You guys are absolutely hilarious. Thank you for the super chat, though. Why do people want to watch me do this? This is very strange, but it's so bizarre. The material that this is made out of is actually really not realistic at all. One of the reasons, fun fact, one of the reasons why this is not a very good system is because, first of all, the shape of this ear is not quite anatomically correct, and second of all, the material it's made out of is not it's too stiff. It's not compliant enough. So when headphones fit over it, it tends to like deform it, which can screw up the frequency response measurement. Oh, you guys are funny. Stream is gonna get demonetized for lewdness. Yeah, totally. Let's see. Allo Audio. Yeah, I still don't know what's going on with that. LCD3 bass was a lot weaker than LCDX. I don't remember if the LCD3 bass was lower. It's weird. Some of the LCDs tend to sound like they have weaker bass than others do. Something I've noticed, despite having almost the same exact frequency response. So that's probably dynamics right there. Differences between them, which is interesting. What makes a reviewer trustworthy? That's good. Oh, I like this question. Are you getting the Pixel 4? I'll answer that one afterward. what does make a reviewer trustworthy? How do you know what they think is somehow true, correct, accurate? Can those terms even apply to subjective impressions? That's kind of a big problem in the hobby is, can we, yes we won, can we figure out if a reviewer is accurate, and how do we know that their subjective impressions of something matches other people? Honestly, the people that I trust tend to have similar impressions as me, and not in terms of like tone balance, but in terms of this is detailed, this is less, soundstage is good here, soundstage is not as good there. So it's the stuff that's subjective that I tend to agree on more with other people, and those are the people I start to trust, because everyone has kind of their own frequency response taste. As long as they make that clear, I think that reviewer is probably pretty decent. So that's kind of why I told Max, hey, you should make a channel, because his impressions were pretty interesting, and we agreed on quite a few things. And yeah, Podcastage probably has at least something to say about this, because, well, thankfully you can share the sound samples. Recording headphones is a whole nother bag of worms, or whatever. That's not even the right term. But anyway, a can of worms to open up. Bag of worms. Wow, I'm really losing my mind here. The stream's been going for too long. Yeah, like recording headphones is a whole nother problem, and I'm not really a big fan of sound demos, because most people don't have the equipment they really need to even do that properly, let alone the inaccuracies of positional movement on like positional variation on headphones, putting them on the head, and it's very difficult to do an accurate sound demo. So that's why, yeah, microphones are great, because so you don't have to do anything to process it or try to get it, across to people. All you can do is describe the sound with headphones. So, but I don't like affiliate links at all, really. Not that the reviewers who use them are bad necessarily, but one of the problems with affiliate links is it kind of biases you mentally, like, without even realizing it. Because if you're making commission off of people buying a product, are you really going to say it's bad? Like, you're less likely to say it's bad than other people, kind of without realizing it. So that's one reason why I don't use affiliate links at all either, and I make sure people know that they don't make any money. I don't make any money at all off of clicking links. So that's another thing I notice about other reviewers. But strangely, yeah, someone already brought it up. I knew someone was going to say that. That's why Z loves everything. Not really. I mean, he's really hated on some things quite hard that I totally disagree with, which is really strange. Like, he really liked the HD800S, and he really hated the HD800. And those two are very similar sounding headphones. But anyway, I don't hate on the guy. I don't agree with his reviews. That's all. It's made some strange calls, but it's definitely not true that he loves everything he reviews. That's definitely not been the case. I've been following him long enough to know that. But still, like, I'm not even talking about what people really think about the headphones. It's just like there's an inherent mental bias. That's also why I try to avoid people who, like, I try to avoid companies sending me things as much as possible. But honestly, there are some cases where that's just the best way I'm going to be able to get the headphone, so I go with it. But that is also, you can fire shots at me for working with companies getting review units, because that's an inherent mental bias also. But the real reason why I liked Audizies and ZMFs is because I already liked them ahead of time. And then I asked the company, hey, I like your stuff. I like some models you make, not all of them, but some of them. Send me more things. And usually they're very happy about, hearing that. And I just try to be as honest as possible, really. I just try to be as honest as possible. So that's my view on reviews, weirdly. That's a really great question. I agree with Podcastage on that. Let's see. Are you getting the Pixel 4? Now, that one I wanted to answer. Probably not. Some of those, if you really follow me really closely, know that I have a OnePlus 6T right now, actually. And so I was looking at the OnePlus 7T Pro this year. And the reason why I don't want a Pixel is actually mainly the RAM. This might sound ridiculous because most people probably don't even notice the difference, but when you have so many social media apps, unfortunately, it just eats away at Android RAM like nothing else. And I have 8 gigs of RAM right now, and I wish I had 12 because things keep dying. Things keep dying in the background, and they have to keep cold starting even as it is, and I want to minimize that as much as possible. Yeah, I'm actually not sure if the 7T Pro is coming to the US though, but there's actually 2 OnePlus events. They had one, and then they're going to have another one October 10th. And so I'm hoping that the 7T Pro is going to be announced then. And so if that has 12 gigs of RAM option with the UFS 3 storage, 90 hertz display, I'm almost sold on that. I don't even feel like upgrading because this is fast enough, but having 12 gigs of RAM would be so awesome. Anyway, my little rant. And I don't really care that much about headphone jacks on phones, unlike most of you guys probably. They're going away. I don't know what we're going to do about it except use things like ES100 and whatever. So that's that. I mainly prioritize update speed and performance of the phone over the camera and the headphone jack, stuff like that. So that's why I like OnePlus. But I was hardcore Nexus and then Pixel for a while until last year when I switched to OnePlus, and honestly, I've been pretty happy with it. Opinion on the iPhone 11 Pro. I saw the teardown of it, and if you guys follow Jerry Rig Everything, which some of you who are really into phones probably do, the internals of it look really well done, more so than we've seen in years. And so I really like that Apple has done some serious work making the battery absolutely massive in the 11 Pro. And so I have to credit them on that. They're giving it hardware that it deserves for the price they're charging. So yeah, I see it. Hold on. Don't do that. But I just don't use Apple products anyway. So I wouldn't buy the phone, but it seems like it's a pretty decent step up above the 10. But at the same time, I still don't get along with this whole $1,000 phone thing in general. Just not a fan of that. But it's really impressive that OnePlus is able to offer this thing so cheap. I'm sure there's some kind of illegal labor involved in that, unfortunately, but that's such a sad commentary. Yeah, that was actually the main reason why I went with the OnePlus, is still the RAM. And some people were saying they have the 3XL and the 2XL there with 4 gigs of RAM. Dude, I couldn't even deal with the Pixel 2XL after maybe like a year. Like it was bad. I remember when I first got it, apps would load fast enough. And usually Pixels don't slow down over time, but I don't know, maybe the OS started to get heavier, but with each update. But like the problem was at first, like, okay, apps would die, some would cold start, but the cold starts would be fast. You guys might have to know how computers work in order to understand this, but basically things that are recently used stay in RAM. They stay resident until it runs out of space, then it has to start killing off things to make room for other apps. So with the 4 gigs of RAM, that would happen quite a bit, but the storage was fast enough to keep up with it. And then over time, I started launching apps, and something would just hitch down to a crawl, and just crawl, and then it would finally start to pick up speed again. And that just happened so often with the Pixel 2 XL, I couldn't take it anymore. And so I'm never buying a phone that has like less than 8 gigs of RAM from now on. That just got too annoying. Exactly. See, people with the OnePlus 5T, so you were way ahead of the game there. That's what I think I should have had. And I probably would still have right now. I might even keep the 6T another year. We'll see. I almost never, ever buy a phone less often than every year, but we'll see. I might try to keep this one a little bit longer. It depends on what comes out. I just don't want to see what the Pixel 4 ends up being, though. Now, the Pixel 4 has 6 gigs now, actually. The 3XL has 4 gigs, which is just absolutely terrible. That's actually the main reason why I didn't buy it. It's just absolutely terrible. And yeah, you know what? I think that's actually true. The whole Apple stigma of ooh, this person doesn't use iMessage and doesn't use an iPhone. It's powerful, man. It's really powerful. That's true. It's sad, but it's the way people think about it. Oh, you use Android. Oh, no. I think that's ridiculous. I don't use Apple because it's a choice, but people use whatever they like more, you know? Do I feel higher gauge headphone cables sound better? No. No, I don't think so. Do I take... This is a really good question. I've been meaning to address this for a while, actually. Do I think that taking my glasses off for testing headphones to prevent the seal from breaking, or do I have a specific pair for it? Yes, I actually do test that, and not that many headphones actually make a huge difference with that because I test so many open headphones. But with closed backs like these, and actually the 371 is a perfect example of interfering with glasses, the bass is affected on these. So that's something I'm going to have to mention in the review, and if I don't, somebody please remind me to do that. Please, just, yeah, because I need to say something about that. But yeah, nope, that's a really good question. Glasses definitely make a difference. In fact, it's funny, if you look at pictures of Bob Katz listening to headphones on Tile's site, Inner Fidelity, you'll see that I think he takes his glasses off every single time. Which, you know, when you're a professional mastering engineer, you better do that. Yeah, smartphone cults are really funny. Just texting someone and seeing green bubbles. Oh, so bad. Android, bad. So bad. Yeah, it's just craziness, man. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the Android 10, what's it called? The Android 10 gestures yet. I haven't gotten it yet on the 6T, but it's supposed to be coming this month. They don't have much time left to do that. We'll see. What do I think of other reviewers? You know, I don't like speaking badly at all about any other reviewers because we're all just trying to get the information out there, you know? So I'd rather not get into that, even though I already said a couple things about Z. But I think the most important thing to take away from all these questions about other reviewers is that I'm judging the reviews and not the person. Like, people think that I'm not friends with Z and DMS and Josh and all that stuff, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Or at least, I don't think it is anyway. I've met DMS and Z many times in person already. Yeah, that's right. Some people have already seen me with them at Can Jam. We're all in this thing together. I would never expect to agree or anything like that. I mean, when people are just starting their channel, I like to, you know, if they ask for help, I'll gladly give them some pointers on what I do, but ultimately it's up to them and up to the audience who they like better. And if my sub count is any indication, I'm the worst reviewer there is. But I absolutely I want to be the last possible person to start drama because it's just stupid. You know, I'm almost 30, and, like, this is, like, 18-year-old stuff being like, ooh, person X said this about person Y. Ooh, big drama fight. Like, it's just stupid, man. It's like, why do people obsess over such things? We're all just trying to... This is a really big brain moment, right? We're all just trying to get along on this earth. Screw it, man. But yeah, a lot of the impressions will not line up. That's the way it is, which is fine. But, you know, I think that it's overall a benefit, I think, at least, because now you have a lot of people you can listen to and compare impressions of, and then you can decide who you believe the most or who aligns with your preferences the most. I tend to think of it right now, though, as I am the Harman warm guy, kind of like Tile was, because he agreed with the Harman research as well. And a lot of my style is based off of Tile. I don't know if the reviews really are, but, like, just the descriptions of sound and everything that I saw missing on so many other channels, which is why I started doing this, was something I wanted to bring to the YouTube community at large. And, yeah. But max settings would be more of the diffuse field guy, where I'm the Harman guy. So if you want another alternative that likes brighter headphones and has quite good ears, then that's what max settings really is. That's why I encourage him to make a channel, because Ishka was very good. Some of you probably know about him already. He only did written reviews, but and he was writing for headphones.com for a while. He was excellent, very, very hard on every headphone he reviewed. But he did have a couple really good favorites, and he liked brighter stuff as well. So I kind of cover the, I cover the base of the more consumer-oriented sound. I like the Harman sound, and I've always had. When I started, I was like, hey, can I find neutral? And then I ended up realizing I was searching for diffuse field. Then I started playing with EQ, and I was like, oh crap, I'm just going to go back to what I've always wanted to hear out of a headphone the rest of my life, which is ended up. Then the Harman research dropped, and I'm like, oh, I'm not completely crazy. So that's kind of where this went, Yeah, the new tile. I don't like that. I don't really like that term, me being the new tile, because I could never hope to replace that guy. That guy's a friggin' legend, man. Such a legend, legendary reviewer, man. He had some of the most expensive measurement setups of anybody for so long. I could never hope to get one of those hats. I say that now, but who knows. In before I grow out a tile beard, and reviews from Winnebago. Yeah, actually, I think it was I think it's a abandoned FedEx truck, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Tile's awesome. We all miss him, I'm sure. People who are fans of my channel probably followed Tile a lot already, because that's kind of where I review from. Yeah, I definitely need to talk about eyeglasses. Oh yeah, that is something interesting about Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. I do like that he mentions the tracks he's listening to. Although honestly, I test with the same set of songs every time anyway, so my preference is still unchanging. I don't really need to say which songs I'm using unless people really ask, because as long as I'm consistent, people will start to pick up on that I'm consistent versus totally out in left field. Yeah, LCD2 closed are big. This thing is huge. Because they had to have an enclosure on top of where the LCD2 Classic would end. And somehow my neck is still okay. I don't understand how. I think after the first hour passed, I just kind of got used to it. So there, yeah, they are heavy. They're 635 grams. I just measured them before I started this stream. I'm gonna be a headphone meme soon. I already am a headphone meme. Soundstage while maintaining detail. It's exactly what I look for too. But my preference and frequency response may not match everybody's. Best headphone for the money ratio. This is so difficult. That's a really good question though, because it brings up the sense of value. I kind of have a chart of, okay, here's what's good at this price, here's what's good at this price. But you could argue that buying a Porta Pro for $30 blows away buying the 6XX for $220. But I think both of those are a really good value. It just depends on what you think value is, because there's going to be people who think spending more than $100 on a headphone, nuts. No one should ever do that. So value is really difficult to do, but that's why I probably should make that video about 2019. I should probably make a yearly video about what are my picks of the year. As of that year, what is good at mid-fi, what is good at $100. Yeah, I think a lot of people have requested that, so I'm assuming I'm about to get a barrage of messages being like, why haven't you done that yet? I wouldn't be surprised. Oh man, the MDR 7506. Oh please, come on. That's a fun one to listen to the sound demo of, actually, for Olive, because no matter how inaccurate the Mini DSP ears is, that is probably one of the grainiest sounding vintage headphones I have ever heard. The MDR 7506, man. Oh boy, I feel like everybody should hear it so they can understand that. But I thought it was really funny because Olive was like, when he did his review of the 7506, he was like, "Oh, I don't know if this unit is broken or if it really sounds like this." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it's like." uh, People who really like the 7506, you like what you like. I can't tell you what to buy, obviously, but I just can't understand why I would choose that over like a Cal. Like the sound quality is just so starkly different. Thanks for another super chat. Abyss headphones, because I'll never afford them. I want to review Abyss, and I think Max and I both want to do this, but it's really hard to get a hold of one of those things. I'd have to have a viewer send me one, really. I'm not sure the company just gives out review units of those at all. So... I like this one. To be honest with you, Metal, I recently tested pretty much every headphone recently. I pretty much did not like the stock tuning of any of them. Welcome to my world. That's why I have to EQ most things. It's just like, most things have something that can be improved in the frequency response. This matters if you can live with it or not. Yeah, Max settings is speaking the truth there. That's apparently, I didn't want to say that, but that's apparently what they told us, or they told him. I never actually contacted Abyss. Since DMS works for them, and I think that's very public knowledge now, we thought maybe we could ask him, but I think that's what his response was. He's like, no, Abyss has to kind of like approve you. Yeah, DMS told you that? Okay, yeah. Yeah, they have to kind of approve you as a reviewer. I don't remember how old DMS is. I'm not going to say on the stream anyway if he doesn't want that information to be public. If Half-Life 3 comes out tomorrow, what headphones would you choose? Well, I'd go OnePlus Half-Life 3 and that thing right there, which is not mine, by the way. I don't actually own an LCD4. I just read your comments, Soundwave. Killing me. LCD4 or 26 grams of heroin. Yeah, no, sorry. Very difficult decision. No. Consumer equals what is grainy? Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. I had no clue what grain was. And actually, you know how I really found out that detail was what I wanted, but I didn't understand. I think I just called it air for like the longest time. I just want air. I want air. I want the best air. And then eventually I realized, oh, this is what detail sounds like now. And it was actually hearing the HD 600 for the first time that absolutely blew me away, ruined my ears. The 598 has more grain than the 6X0 series, but it's quite a bit better than a lot of other headphones, cheaper than it though. So everything is relative in the hobby. That's one of the problems, you know? It's so it's just, Soundwave is, I clearly need to have a podcast with Soundwave Tracks here because he just has the funniest messages, I swear. 58X sounds really good for $160. Yeah, the problem is the 6XX sounds a lot cleaner for only 50 more bucks. So I think the thing about the 58X, again, I don't think I hate them as much as some other reviewers do. If you don't have an amp and you're absolutely not going to buy an amp and it's your first headphone, I honestly don't blame you for buying it. But yeah, the 6XX is better in terms of detail, independent of the tuning. Oh god, yeah, that's right. The SHP 9500, those are enormously grainy. And they should cost $50. I think when I reviewed them, they were like $50. I don't know if anyone remembers a couple of years ago what their price was. I seem to remember them being around that price. But now that they're going for like $80, it gets really difficult to recommend them. That's too much. But an easy way to upgrade from the 9500 is to get a used 558. You can find one of those on like eBay for like $70 or $80. And it's way, way better than the 9500. It's crazy. Yeah. Trellis G says, I don't think I understood what grain meant until you just said that with 7506, and my brain now forever understands having heard those. Yeah, exactly. You just kind of need to hear a lot of things, you know. It's very hard for me to describe what a headphone sounds like if you haven't heard a thing. So, like, my recommendation to everybody in this chat is if you haven't heard a 6XX before or an HD600, just get a 6XX already and you will way more understand my reviews, because a 6XX with about 2 decibels less upper mid-range is basically exactly what I look for my headphone in terms of tone. And then I guess you could get a 7506 and understand how much grain it has comparatively. But you just have to hear a lot of things, and that's difficult because at least where I'm from in the US here, there are just no headphone stores. So, like, you can't even demo anything. Going to a Can Jam is a big help. That's probably the most awesome thing that you can do, is go to a Can Jam event. But not every country has those either. So it's really difficult. You know, this whole hobby is very difficult to explain to people. And, you know, New York City has a bunch of headphone stores, even if you're not going to an event. What is it? I think it's Audio 46, which I haven't been yet, and I'm going to try to go in February as well. And then obviously B&H. I don't know if they still have their huge setup with headphones, but I bet they do. So, but again, like, if you're not in the U.S., it's difficult. Some countries, I'm sure they have, like Japan has awesome, I bet. I haven't been there, but they have awesome headphone stores from what I've seen pictures of. Oh man, Ultrasone. I do want to review an Ultrasone. Unlistenable is supposed to be exactly what those are. Forgot about those too. Thank you for the super chat, Future Tropics. Good upgrade for DT770. It depends. It's not the DT1770, by the way, as somebody just said. I reviewed those, and they are a big downgrade in detail from what I heard. Very disappointing. I really wanted to have a better 770. If you already have, it depends. I mean, how much do you want to pay? Does it have to be closed back still, or can it be open? Do you like the treble? You know, that kind of thing. What about thank you for the super chat, Focalier, because someone else mentioned it. Is that the upgrade for the 770? I guess the Slam on an Alere would be good, but honestly, the Alexa is supposed to be a lot better than the Alere. The Alexa and the Clear, but that does have some nice bass dynamics if you like that kind of thing coming from the 770. I guess that makes sense because there is some treble tiz to it. So, okay, you're looking at $400, and you don't like the mid treble on the 990s. Well, I don't think like too many people do. I don't know why people keep buying those. In that case, I would say X00, because yeah, that's got the bass you're looking for for sure if you're coming from a 770, but you don't want it to be as bright as a 990. There you go. Is my coupon for the X00 Ebony still working? Because you could use that to get it for like 400 something bucks. But that would make sense. There you go. Is the K371 the best closed can under $200? Is everybody listening to this? Yes. And that's mainly because the K550 to me was the best under $200 first, and this has just replaced it. You can't get the K550 anymore, the K553. This is basically a warmer version of it with more sub bass and a little bit less upper mids, I think. That's how it sounds to me. You know, what I was really shocked at with this headphone, I was wondering why I liked it so much, and just the other day I overlaid my 650 measurement and then with this one, and let me tell you, the mids, like all the way from like 200 hertz up, like match almost identically, and the treble has the same peak levels between the two headphones, talking about the 650 and the 371, but they're just at slightly different spots. It's really quite good. And it even has a sound stage, believe it or not. And it's $150. Is K553 still on Amazon? Wow. Well, they're not really made anymore, I don't think. Can you actually order them on the AKG site? I think last time I couldn't, but I could be wrong. But anyway, both of those then, depending on what you prefer, would be the best under 200 closed that I've heard. Why is ZMF expensive? And that is because they use, yeah, that's right, they're handmade. I think they're made to order as well. Also, they're not even, he doesn't stock that many of them, I don't think, especially for like things like the Verite. So they're not really mass produced at all. And the wood is expensive because it's solid wood. But the lifetime warranty is actually pretty cool if you're the original owner as well. But again, it's more expensive than the sound quality. So, but I can kind of forgive it to some degree because of the other stuff that people might find worth it. But personally, I don't think I would ever buy a ZMF at, MSRP. I would buy one used, and if it breaks, just pay for the warranty work. And that's the case with a lot of headphones now because they're just so expensive. The MSRP, the new stuff is crazy. I like the Night Owls, but don't tell Metal 571. Oh, sorry, I totally missed the super chat here. Have you heard any affordable active speakers that don't sound grainy and harsh? Yeah, JBL, what is it, the 305s? Yeah. I don't know if the 305, what is it, the P2 is out now? I don't know if that sounds the same. I haven't heard it. Maybe some other people have. But as far as active studio monitors, JBLs are pretty good. Flux might know also. I'm not as much of a speaker guy as everybody else, but I do like speakers. It's just that the room setup to get the most out of a speaker is very difficult. Let's see what else we got here. K371 for 120 euros. What is that in US dollars? I don't even remember. Probably is. No, I don't have the K361 yet, but I am getting them from AKG though. But it'll probably be at least a month. But that's okay. I'm not going to review I'm not going to wait to review the K371. They're going to be next, and then I'll do the 361s later when I get them, and I'll compare them at that point. Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. So as far as like $6,000, ridiculous. That's right. Like the really high-end stuff, it's like, it's like cars, man. Like buying them new, you take such a massive depreciation here. It doesn't even make sense. And what's after the K371 review? I am doing this guy, the LCD2 closed back. Because I think that's what I said. But I decided not to do the 4Z or the LCD24. They're just not noteworthy enough. The price is just... I was going to consider doing one of those, but... yeah, compared to the LCD4, neither of those are really quite there. They don't make a lot of sense. They are lighter, though. But that's about it. Night Owls sound better than the Nighthawks. Yeah, I think so, too. When I heard the Night Owls, I heard them at a meet once, briefly. And, yeah, the frequency response was way more normal sounding. Way more normal sounding. Which is funny, because I think Audio Quest was bragging about how Hatz's are bad and their frequency response compensations are wrong, and we got it right with the Nighthawk instead. And I'm just like, oh, come on. And then they released the Night Owl and completely went back on all of that, and they were like, yep, okay, we knew. That's kind of what I got out of that anyway. Am I going to review the MDR M1ST? I don't even know what that is either. Crap. Man, I'm not keeping up with the market here, apparently. Yeah, this is exactly the point I was making. I tried my $450 monitors in an open space, and they sound worse than the HD600. It's hard to get like acoustics right with speakers. I'm not gonna review a Ford Fiesta ST. Oh man, it's funny. I cringe when I see those because they're almost always super loud, and driven by people who are vaping. But that's the same thing as a Super WRX, isn't it? And then I can't say anything because I drive a G37, which is like the epitome of like a douche car. So that doesn't work out very well. I can't hate on anybody's car. I wish the LCDs looked like the Mobius. It would be interesting if they managed to get the same sound quality into a Mobius chassis as the LCDs and with the Mobius frequency response. Please, Odyssey, come on. If I ever review the M70X by Audio-Technica, this guy says I'm gonna laugh. Yeah, I kind of have an idea of what those are supposed to sound like, and I have a feeling that I'm going to hate them so much. Measurements on interfidelity already give me a nice hint of how friggin' bright that's going to be, you know? Yeah, okay, I'm not crazy. That's definitely the case. What's up with the LCD GX? No, actually, it looks like it's based on the MX4, which I also don't like very much from Can Jam Impressions. Haven't heard that one at home yet. Maybe eventually I'll get that. So instead of a double-sided magnet, it's a single-sided MX4 as far as we can tell. That's about the same impedance as the MX4. So I have no idea what to think about that headphone yet. NDH20 sounds like a 660S with bass and warmth. I think the NDH20, I thought I read it was supposed to be tuned like a 650, but I guess they made a huge downslope with lots of bass on top of that. I don't know. We'll see. But hey, if it has good technicalities like detail and soundstage, and if it's a bass heads headphone but it doesn't bleed too much in the upper mids, the upper bass, it might get a good review from me. I don't know. Only Max knows right now since he has one. What's my opinion on the HE1000? Yeah, the HE1000 V1 is actually one of the best headphones I've heard. I never ended up reviewing it, but I did demo one for an extended period at home. I was just thinking about this. What are some of the most detailed headphones I've actually had in-house? And that list would go something like LCD4, L700, and HE1000 V1. Those three. No question. Those are awesome. But they break, probably. Because hi-fi, man. Oh, I hope not, but some of them, the build does not give me a lot of confidence on that HE1000. Yeah, L700, I said, that's the stacks. Very, very detailed. I haven't had the 007 or the 009 at home yet, and I really want one, though. You're going to roast me on Discord for using an LCD2 closed. Yep. I just wanted to see how long I could last with it because it's so heavy. And yeah, I guess I made it 2.5 hours, believe it or not. So there's your proof. If people are wondering, how can metal deal with these heavy headphones? I just wore this without taking it off for 2.5 hours, and I'm alive. And my neck is actually all right. I don't think I could do this with the LCD4 though, because that's just another 100 grams is really unbelievably crazy. I like the Sennheiser sound. I own the 598, the 58X, the 6XX. Try a 600 or step up to the 660. Those are not really steps up. You could, if anything, if you need an efficient version of that sound, then I would do the 660S and just sell the 58X because you won't need it at that point. Am I going to review the 371? Yeah, it's the next one. It's the next review I'm doing. Difference between the NDH20 and the 630 VB, I don't know. They're supposed to be using the same chassis, but I don't think the drivers have anything to do with each other necessarily. They're totally retuned. I need a neck brace after this. No, actually, I'm alright, I think. The Sendara sound like $40 headphones, according to Olive. That's really funny. I forgot about that. I forgot he did a review on that. Is the Edition XX bad? Yeah. For its price, I didn't like it. Again, it's grain. It's not even measurements. It has nothing to do with the measurements. At least that's what I thought about serial number 0000, which is what they sent me. Kind of weird. Kind of miss the K550. I sold them to my best friend, but they probably don't sound as good as I remember them. They sound pretty good. Like, I actually sold my K550, which was a later production model, and I bought a K553 Pro. I don't even know why I did that. I think it's because I was using some other headphone at work at the time, and then I didn't need the K550s anymore, and then I decided I kind of need them, and so I bought a 553 Pro, which was the K550 Mark II, same thing, and they sounded exactly the same. Because I think I went to go demo my friend's K550 that I sold him at work, and then I was like, oh boy, what did I do selling this? This is good. And I ended up buying it again, so I'm not sure if I'm going to sell the 553 yet. It's over there. Because the 371 is really good, but it's also a different tuning. It's going to be an interesting shootout between those two. Let's see. Yeah, iPhone and build quality is such a joke. Would never buy one again, regardless of the sound. Yep, I know. It's unfortunate. Then there's Audeze, where they're built using lots of metal and pretty solid, but then the drivers die sometimes. It's like you can't win with the planers, Which headphone is my personal favorite that I own or plan to purchase? I don't know what I'm going to end up buying, but right now my favorite is the LCD2 with EQ, which is sitting right there. That's an LCD2 phaser from 2018. Actually, it's the exact same unit that Max Settings reviewed, and then I bought it off of them. Did you regret selling the 600s? That's a good question. Initially, no. I'm assuming you're talking about selling them when I bought the 660S. Yeah, I kind of did, but years later, which was very recently, so I bought them again, and I sold them again, because I like the 650 and the 6XX better. They're pretty much the same headphone. And that's what I decided. In the end, I like the 650 more than the 600. And I was talking about that earlier, like the 600 has more mids and more treble, but the problem was that the upper mids were more forceful. They're a little bit grainier to my ears for some reason. The 650 was a little bit more detailed there, so that's one of the reasons why. But the 580 and the 600, I wonder if anyone in here has had a 580 since they came out in 93. That would be impressive. I really wonder, if anybody has any marketing material, this is like something I've always wanted to explore. If anyone has any marketing material about how Sennheiser advertised the 580 when it originally was released in 93, I'd love to see links to that. That'd be really cool. That's hard to find online. I looked, but early Sennheiser print ads for new HD 580 now. That would be so cool. Is the 650 more veiled? This is a crazily dead beaten horse by Head-Fi, and the reason why it's called more veiled than the 600 is because it's warmer, not because it's dead sounding. One of the someone asked me if this is an ESP in the corner. Yeah, that's a LTD MH400NT if you want to look it up. But yeah, it is. It's not a full ESP, it's an LTD. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, the 650 is only more veiled in the sense that it has less treble than the 600. Not that it's really worse. I was surprised because I think one of the reasons why that keeps floating around is because the pads, when they wear out on all of the 600s, 580s, and 650s, causes the treble to get really quite a lot warmer than when they're new. And so as soon as you replace the pads, then you realize, oh, this had some kind of treble to it before. I think that's at least part of the reason why people are saying that. But the other part is because everything before the 580 basically was much brighter. Like the DT880, a lot of the biodynamics. And then the Sennheiser came out and everyone was like, this is way too dark. Bad veiled, and it's really not. It has plenty of treble extension. It's just warmer. And yeah, much easier to listen to over long periods of time. Best overall headphone, price range $500 for music listening. More detail on the mids and the lows. Oh, that is very difficult. because I don't think there's any really good planar in that price range, except I guess we were talking about the HE560 V1 earlier. Yeah, we need a new Sennheiser flagship. Definitely. Definitely. I've been wanting this HP 800 or HP 900 or something for a long time. A planar Sennheiser flagship. That'd be fun. LCD4 or Empyrean. Yep, hi brother from Reddit. Yeah, I did that review of the Empyrean, and that's actually exactly what I compared to in there, and definitely LCD4, no question. They're just not on the same level. Oh, sorry. Am I supposed to call you 07? My bad. New K371 for $130, worth it. Yeah, I mean, the headphone is priced well when it's at $150 MSRP, in my opinion. So $130, yeah, that's pretty good. HD820 was a joke. Yeah, I know. The frequency response on it is so bizarre. The way Grell, I don't know if he actually tuned it directly or not, but he made some kind of mistake. But he made some kind of comment during the presentation of its frequency response, and like, oh yeah, we totally meant to do this like 5 dB dip at 300 hertz, and everyone was just like, what? So that was only one of its issues, but pretty weird. And yeah, the K812 is, oh man, that's a bad headphone. That's amazing how much worse it sounds than a 712, which might be the most detailed AKG I've heard. I haven't tried the K1000 though. Not at home. Those are really hard to come by, of course. Anthony says, I still have an HD600 that I purchased in 1997. And last year I went to Sennheiser headquarters in the UK to get new pads and a headband. That is awesome. So what is the marketing? What was the marketing like back then? Like, how did you hear about the release of it? I guess it was Headwise. I spent some time, like a couple weeks ago, looking at the like archive.org for Headwise, because apparently that was before Headfi, and that's, I guess, where people were kind of congregating for the first time to talk about headphones online. And that was in the late 90s. Stereophile. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I assume there was a bunch of audio publications that must have mentioned it. My 600 pads died after 8 months. Yep. Yeah, with daily use, you probably get somewhere between 6 months and a year out of them. And then they get too flat, and they just sound too dark, and you have to replace them. They are a totally expendable item, and do not replace them with anything except for the OEM pads. It's just the way it is with those headphones, unfortunately. Yeah, pretty much. And they're like $50 every time you buy them, I think. At least here. Have I tried the Meze 99 Classics with velour pads? No. Is there some kind of velour pad that I was supposed to try on them? Yeah. Exactly. Every time I see somebody post an HD600 with brainwave pads, I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah, here it is right here. Wheezy Review says, I tried the Deconi Elite Velours on my 6XX and I made them so dark. Yeah, it's terrible to try swapping around pads of the 600. Is that what's going on in the old Head5 post? ESP 950 versus the HE60. Oh yeah, I still haven't heard the HE60. I want to, though. I wonder if anyone on here, especially the guys who have heard or bought the 600 back in 97, if you've heard and can confirm that the 580 and the 600 were tuned off of what they learned from the HE90, which is the original Orpheus, for those who don't know. Because I've heard that before as well. And that's why people thought the Orpheus was amazing, I guess, is because it was warmer than headphones at the time. No, I haven't heard the HE90, but I've heard that the 580 and 600 were tuned based on what they learned from tuning the HE90 Orpheus. MDR84. Is that an on-ear Sony or something? That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, I think Max is probably right here. Axel Gross stated his goal was to make the 580 a dynamic HE90. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, welcome to the stream, Laura. If that's even the right pronunciation. I heard any dynamic that comes close to the L700 in resolution. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I guess the Utopia would be something like that. But I haven't never compared those two side by side either. It's kind of unfortunate that I did the L7. Actually, my neck is finally starting to bug me a little bit now after 2.5 hours here. I didn't have any other high-end headphones around when I reviewed the L700, like the LCD4 or something like that, or Empyrean. So I don't actually know. I would imagine the Utopia is probably like the only thing that'll give it a run for its money. Now imagine a DP770 Pro. No, this is not the XC. This is the LCD2 closed back. It's based on the LCD2 Classic. Here's a question that comes up a lot. People who are really big fans of the channel will know the answer to this one, but what's my name? It's actually Jason. That's my actual name. Big necks only, Odyssey. LCD closed back's great for the neck gains. Yeah, there you go. There's the spelling. Absolutely. That's what I'll just call it. JESIN reviews. Am I doing a Joe Rogan length this time? Yeah, you know what? I probably should wrap it up. I'm sure everybody's getting tired of this. All right, last questions. Give me last minute questions. Of course, the chat's probably gonna explode right about now. Yeah, Jason. I knew somebody was gonna say that. Oh my god, so many people. Do I have to speak in JSON format in order to release the review if I do that? You guys are all programmers apparently. Perp Dolo says that's quite an interesting name. Sat down at the Sennheiser booth and listened to the HD 800, 820, and 660S, and after I listened, I said I like the vocals on the HD 600, and you got the death stare. That's hilarious. How can they not understand that people like the 650 and 600 sound? How can they do the HD 800 and be like, oh, people will definitely like this more, even though it sounds like nothing like their previous headphones? I still don't understand that. Why do I have the LCD2C? Oh, you mean the closed back here? I actually have the LCD2 Phaser, is the one I own up there, but this is the LCD2 closed. The reason why I have this one is because the LCD XC has a much worse frequency response, so I'm probably gonna review this LCD2 closed back here. Yeah, I get this question pretty much every time. Will I do IEM reviews? I don't know yet. And if I did, the first ones will probably be like the LCD i3 and the i4, because that's not quite a normal IEM anyway. Mobius or the PM3? I'll probably still take the Mobius, especially because you can't find it. I mean, you can't find the PM3 anymore. Am I interested in microphones? Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I just wanted something that sounded decent enough for people wearing really expensive headphones on the other end of my videos, so that's why I have this. This is the Rode NT1. It's fairly neutral sounding, apparently, and on top of that, it has very, very low self-noise, which is nice. What does the LCD2 Classic weigh? 10 pounds? No, they're actually the lightest LCD, I think. One of the lightest anyway. I think they're like 550 grams. This one is 635. Matched craft beer in your next review. See, that's a job for Sips and Sounds over at Instagram. Yeah, I know. People are hyping those BLON, Belon. How are you supposed to say that? It's just brands. It's weird. Yeah, there it is. 549 grams. Yep. It's They're pretty heavy. Actually, the LCD4, when I weighed them, I think they were over 700 grams, believe it or not. They're really up there. Or unless that's actually what if you measured that yourself, that's pretty interesting. I have to weigh the LCD4 that I have here, which is from Bloom Audio. What is PPST Ranger? I have never... Oh, PP Stranger? Very funny. I've never heard of that. Ever. What is that? Some IEM brand? I should review Sendy Iva. Yeah, I probably should have. I think Max was going to send me his Iva review unit at one point. Yeah, Odyssey says 735 for LCD4. That's pretty much what it weighs, I think. Oh, I can't even imagine what HEDD phone, the head to phone, is going to do to me. That's going to be bad. If that ends up sounding really, really good and weighs 900 grams, oh, it's going to kill everybody, man. It's like a safety issue having a headphone that's that heavy, a kilogram. Almost. Monoprice M1570 open back. Yeah, I don't have very high hopes for that considering the M1060. But if I end up finding one, then maybe. Especially if somebody hypes it up, then I have to do a response review to that, of course. If it's actually not very good, then I'm going to have to clearly say that it's not very good. Icon over the LCD2 closed. That's interesting. As far as I can tell so far, the soundstage of the LCD2C closed is not particularly amazing, but I've never compared it to one of the ZMFs. I have the Atticus, but not the Icon. Icon's not quite as wide as the Atticus. Alright, one more question here. Have I tried the Abyss Diana? Yeah, the comfort on that is really strange. I don't know what's up with the pads, but they're not really that big at all and not shaped quite well. But the Diana Phi actually is very, very detailed. Very, very detailed. Way better than the original Diana. Better be. I think it's like $4,000 or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty strange. Alright, guys. Thank you for sticking with me for so long. My neck is ready for a break. So... I will see you guys again soon. Of course, when I'm hosting the next one, you can find it in your notifications, or I will make I'll make a community post also. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing one next week because I want to do a review. But hopefully this is helpful. Yeah, I lost a couple of numbers after the headphone weight. That's right. You're welcome for me existing. All right, guys. Thanks again. Hope that's useful and not just me randomly talking to a microphone behind a computer. Take care.